Procrastination isn't laziness. It's overwhelm, fear, and endless later. We tell ourselves we're waiting for the right time, the right plan, the right feeling. But the right time never comes because action creates it. This audiobook is not about hype. It's a system, a step-by-step treatment plan to dismantle avoidance, remove friction, and make movement automatic. You'll learn why your brain delays, how to break the loop in seconds, and how to build a daily operating system that executes, even without motivation. Stop worshiping perfect. Start respecting started. Because your life won't change when you feel ready. It changes when you act now. Chapter 1. Diagnose the delay. Name your real reason. Procrastination is rarely laziness. It's logic gone emotional. It's the invisible tug-of-war between what you want to do and what you feel ready to do. You tell yourself you'll start when you have time, when things calm down, or when you feel motivated. But those perfect moments never come because procrastination isn't about time management. It's about emotion management. And emotion hides beneath excuses. To cure procrastination, you must first understand why you delay. The surface reasons, I'm tired, I'm busy, I'll do it later, are only symptoms. Beneath them lie the real causes: fear, doubt, confusion, and resistance. If you want to reclaim control, you must diagnose the delay. Name your real reason. Because when you can name it, you can tame it. Identify the root: fear of failure, fear of judgment, unclear next step, or task aversion. Every act of procrastination begins with avoidance, and every act of avoidance begins with emotion. The brain doesn't delay because it's lazy. It delays because it's protecting you. To the brain, discomfort equals danger. So when a task triggers fear or overwhelm, your mind immediately searches for safety through distraction, delay, or denial. You might not even notice it happening. You open your phone just for a second. You scroll, snack, clean, or rearrange your workspace. It feels productive, but it's really a sophisticated escape, a way to avoid discomfort while pretending you're still in control. The truth? You're not procrastinating on the task itself. You're procrastinating on the feeling the task brings. So before you guilt yourself for delaying, pause and ask, what emotion am I trying to avoid right now? Is it fear of not being good enough? Is it confusion of not knowing where to begin? Is it boredom of finding the task meaningless? Or is it perfectionism of setting standards so high that starting feels impossible? Every procrastinator has a root delay, and diagnosing yours is the first step to dismantling it. Let's look at the most common ones. 1. Fear of failure. This is the most powerful form of delay, the fear that whatever you do won't be enough. You'd rather not start than risk confirming that fear. So you wait, telling yourself you'll act when you feel ready. But readiness never comes because readiness isn't an emotion, it's an illusion. Here's the truth. The only cure for fear of failure is exposure. You must shrink the task until it no longer triggers panic. Instead of writing a whole report, write the first line. Instead of building the business, make the first call. Instead of changing your life, change your next 5 minutes. Small wins build momentum. Momentum builds confidence. And confidence dissolves fear. If fear is your delay, your treatment is tiny victories. 2. Fear of judgment. Sometimes you're not afraid of failing privately. You're afraid of being seen failing publicly. The idea of others watching you struggle or criticizing your efforts can paralyze progress. You tell yourself you're not ready to share, but what you're really saying is, I'm not ready to be imperfect in front of people. Here's the shift. Nobody is watching as closely as you think. The spotlight effect, the belief that everyone's judging you, is a lie your ego tells to justify hesitation. In reality, most people are too focused on their own insecurities to notice yours. Action quiets judgment faster than avoidance ever could. When you move, you prove. When you delay, you doubt. If judgment is your delay, your treatment is detachment. Stop performing for approval. Start performing for progress. 3. Unclear next step. You might not fear the task itself. You just don't know where to start. You've built a mental mountain out of something that's really a staircase. The brain hates ambiguity. If your next step isn't clear, your mind labels the task as unsafe and diverts energy elsewhere. That's why procrastination often feels like paralysis. It's not unwillingness, it's uncertainty. The cure? Simplify. Write the next physical, concrete action you can take in under 5 minutes. Don't plan the whole journey, plan the first movement. Clarity reduces resistance because the brain loves direction. If confusion is your delay, your treatment is clarity. 4. Task aversion. Some things are just unpleasant. Filing taxes, making cold calls, cleaning the house. These tasks don't trigger fear or confusion. They trigger boredom and frustration. You're not afraid of them. You just hate doing them. But here's the truth. Even unlovable tasks can be made tolerable through structure and reward. Shorten the task. Set a 10-minute timer and start. Pair it with something enjoyable, music, coffee, or a post-task reward. You're not trying to enjoy the task. You're trying to reduce resistance to starting it. The hardest part of any task is the first 90 seconds. Once you start, momentum takes over. If aversion is your delay, your treatment is pairing and pacing, right? I'm not doing X because __. Naming the block reduces its power. Try it now. Choose one thing you've been putting off, the call, the plan, the project, the decision, and complete the sentence. I'm not doing this because. Say it honestly. Don't sugarcoat it. You might write, I'm not doing it because I'm scared of failing. I'm not doing it because I don't know how to start. I'm not doing it because it feels too boring. That sentence is your mirror. It removes procrastination's disguise and exposes its cause. The moment you identify why you're stuck, you reclaim power over how to move. Because procrastination thrives in vagueness. It dies in clarity. Decide the treatment. Fear, tiny wins. Unclear, clarify outcome. Aversion, shorten and reward. That's your mental medicine cabinet. Every delay has a diagnosis, and every diagnosis has a cure. You don't need motivation to act. You need precision. When you understand your resistance, you stop fighting it emotionally and start managing it logically. The truth is, procrastination isn't a sign of weakness. It's a signal of misalignment. It's your mind saying, something here needs attention. And when you listen instead of judge, you turn procrastination into feedback. So, before you guilt yourself for waiting for the perfect moment, pause and name your real reason. Because once you know why you're waiting, you'll realize there's no perfect moment, just the moment you decide to begin. And that decision, that diagnosis, is where procrastination finally ends. Chapter 2. Clarify the outcome. Define done. Procrastination often disguises itself as confusion. You tell yourself you're stuck because you don't feel ready, but more often, you're stuck because you haven't defined what finish looks like. The brain can't complete what it can't see. When your goal is vague, your energy becomes scattered. You start, stop, and drift because there's no concrete destination guiding your effort. That's why one of the simplest, yet most powerful, cures for procrastination is clarity. Vague goals cause vague effort. Write a one-sentence finish line. This is done when _. Your mind loves specificity. It craves boundaries and definitions. When you tell yourself, I need to work on this project, your brain doesn't know what that means. The result? Resistance, hesitation, and delay. But when you define exactly what done means, you give your brain a clear target, something it can pursue with focus instead of fear. Let's take an example. Instead of saying, I need to get in shape, define, this is done when I complete 3 30-minute workouts this week. Instead of, I have to start my business, define, this is done when I register my business name and open a separate bank account. Vagueness feels safe because it hides accountability. The moment you make a goal specific, it becomes measurable, and that means you can fail. That's exactly why your brain resists clarity. It's afraid of definition because definition demands delivery. But clarity is what converts intentions into action. Without it, you'll keep circling around the same tasks for days, weeks, or even months, busy but not productive, working but not finishing. So make it a rule. Before you start anything, finish this sentence. This is done when. That one sentence becomes your finish line, your North Star, your guide. Everything else is noise. Add constraints, scope, time box, deliverable. The human brain loves boundaries. They create structure and safety. Without them, your goals expand endlessly, creating stress and paralysis. That's why big dreams often die. Not because they're impossible, but because they're undefined. Billionaires, CEOs, and high performers understand that constraints don't limit creativity. They focus it. Let's break down the 3 kinds of constraints that turn fuzzy goals into executable missions. 1. Scope. Define what's in and what's out. Scope answers the question, what exactly am I trying to do? When a task feels overwhelming, it's usually because your scope is too wide. For instance, write a book is huge. Outline 10 chapter titles is manageable. Draft the first paragraph of chapter 1 is doable right now. Clarity of scope removes emotional friction. It helps you avoid perfectionism by giving your task limits. You don't need to do everything, just the next thing. Whenever you start a project, ask, what is included in this goal? What is not included? Because what's excluded is just as important as what's included. 2. Time box. Define how long you'll work. Time expands to fill the space you give it. That's Parkinson's law. If you give yourself 3 weeks to write a report, it'll take 3 weeks. If you give yourself 3 hours, it'll probably still get done because you'll focus harder, decide faster, and waste less time. A time box turns endless tasks into finite ones. It forces completion through commitment. Set a timer, not a timeline. For example, I'll work on this for 45 minutes. I'll finish the first draft by 6 p.m. Deadlines transform effort into urgency. They tell your brain, this ends here. And the human brain performs best when there's a finish line in sight. So, next time you start something, don't just ask, what do I need to do? Ask, when will I stop? 3. Deliverable. Define what you'll produce. If a goal can't be seen or measured, it's not complete. A deliverable gives your work a tangible endpoint. It's the proof of progress, something you can point to and say, I did that. Examples. Complete a 5-slide pitch deck. Draft a 500-word blog post. Record 1 video and upload it. A deliverable transforms working on it into it's done. And that psychological closure creates momentum. Because progress isn't about doing more, it's about finishing more. If you can't define done, you're not ready to start. Many people spend hours working on something without realizing they've never defined what done means. They write endlessly, tweak endlessly, and overthink endlessly because there's no clear finish line. You can't hit a target you can't see. If your project feels overwhelming, it's not because it's impossible. It's because it's undefined. You don't have a clarity problem. You have a completion problem. And completion starts with definition. Before you begin any task, pause and ask yourself 3 questions. What does done look like? How will I know when I'm finished? What will I have in my hands at the end? If you can't answer those questions, don't start. Clarify first. Starting without clarity is like running a race without a finish line. You'll exhaust yourself without ever arriving anywhere. Clarity creates confidence. Procrastination thrives in vagueness because the brain fears uncertainty. But once you define the goal, the fear dissolves. You no longer need to feel ready because now you know what you're doing. Clarity transforms anxiety into action. It replaces hesitation with direction. You stop overthinking and start executing. because your brain finally has a clear path forward. The more you define, the faster you finish. That's why every high performer, from athletes to CEOs, starts with defining what success looks like. It's not because they love structure. It's because they hate wasting time. Clarity is the shortcut to focus, the antidote to distraction, and the foundation of progress. In practice, the define done habit. Try this right now with something you've been avoiding. Write the sentence, "This is done when..." Maybe it's, "This is done when I send the proposal to my client. This is done when I upload the video to YouTube. This is done when I complete 3 pages of writing." Then add, scope, what's included, what's not, time box, when will you start and stop, deliverable, what will you have at the end. You just turned a vague idea into a concrete mission. That's what clarity does. It turns someday into today. Vague goals cause vague effort. Write a 1-sentence finish line. This is done when ... Add constraints. Scope, what's included/excluded, time box, deliverable. If you can't define done, you're not ready to start. Clarify first. Because productivity doesn't start with movement. It starts with definition. Once you know where the finish line is, your brain stops hesitating and starts running straight toward it. Chapter 3. Make it startable. The first 5 minutes rule. The hardest part of any task isn't doing it. It's starting it. The moment before you begin is where resistance lives. It's where doubt whispers, where fear tightens, and where the brain floods you with every reason to delay. Once you cross that threshold, things get easier, but until you do, it feels impossible. That's why the key to curing procrastination isn't willpower, it's entry. You don't need motivation to start. You need momentum triggers. And the simplest, most effective trigger ever discovered is the first 5 minutes rule. Convert project into a first action that takes less than or equal to 5 minutes. Open doc. List 3 bullets. Gather assets. When a task feels huge, your brain doesn't think in logic. It thinks in threat. A project like write my report, build my website, or organize my finances isn't a single action. It's a bundle of decisions, unknowns, and emotional friction. The brain sees that mountain of effort and immediately says, not today. But the same brain that resists massive effort will happily take on tiny effort. It doesn't fear small steps because they don't trigger overwhelm. That's the secret. If you want to beat procrastination, stop thinking in projects and start thinking in entry points. Don't ask, how will I finish this? Ask, how can I start this in the next 5 minutes? Your goal isn't to complete the task. It's simply to open the door. Why the first 5 minutes matter. Human psychology runs on chemistry. When you start something, even something small, your brain releases dopamine, the neurotransmitter of motivation and reward. That chemical shift creates momentum. The act of starting tells your brain, we're doing this, and your energy rises to meet your action. But dopamine doesn't release before you start. It releases after you begin. That's why motivation is so unreliable. It's a reward, not a prerequisite. Waiting to feel motivated before starting is like waiting to get warm before lighting a fire. You don't get motivation first. You earn it through motion. That's what the first 5 minutes rule exploits. The psychology of small wins. Once you take that tiny action, your brain switches from avoidance to engagement. And that's when momentum takes over. You go from I don't want to do this to I might as well keep going. And that shift, that gentle slide from resistance to flow, is the difference between procrastination and progress. The rule in action, how to make anything startable. The next time you face a big, intimidating task, don't tell yourself to finish it. Just make it startable. Take your project and break it into the smallest visible, physical action possible. Something you can do in 5 minutes or less. Examples. Write my report. Open the document and write 3 bullet points. Start exercising. Put on workout clothes and do 10 push-ups. Launch my business. by the domain name, or list 3 product ideas. Study for the exam. Open the textbook and read the first paragraph. The brain doesn't resist starting small. And once you start, you rarely stop. Because starting creates a new emotional state, one where inertia has flipped in your favor. 5 minutes of genuine effort often turns into 30 minutes of flow. Put that micro-action at the top of your to-do list. Most to-do lists fail because they're made of projects, not actions. You write work on presentation instead of open slides and write first headline. You write plan trip instead of check flight prices. You write organize finances instead of open bank statement. Your brain doesn't know what to do with vague tasks. It sees them, feels the effort required, and moves on to easier dopamine hits, like checking notifications or scrolling. To fix this, your to-do list should start with the first 5-minute action, the one that breaks the inertia barrier. Don't write. Finish book proposal. Write. Open Word and write first sentence. Don't write. Update portfolio. Write. Find and upload one new photo. Every task becomes startable when it's defined at the entry level. And when your list is filled with startable items, it becomes energizing instead of intimidating. Each one feels doable because it is. Completion triggers momentum chemicals, dopamine. Continue while the door is open. Once you've taken that first micro step, your brain rewards you. It releases dopamine, creating a feedback loop that says, "This feels good. Let's keep going." That's your cue to ride the wave. Don't stop at 5 minutes if you feel flow. Continue while the door is open. Momentum is fragile. It's a window of heightened focus and reduced resistance. Think of it like push starting a car. The hardest part is getting it to move. Once it's rolling, it's effortless to keep it going. Use the first 5 minutes as the push. Once you feel the motion, let momentum carry you further than motivation ever could. And if you don't feel like continuing after 5 minutes, that's fine. You've already won. You've replaced avoidance with action. You've proven to your brain that starting isn't as painful as it imagined. That small act rewires your relationship with effort. The next time you face the same task, the resistance will be smaller. Why? Because your brain remembers success. Starting once makes it easier to start again. The science behind small starts. Psychologists call this concept behavioral activation. When you take even a tiny step toward a goal, your emotional state improves. You feel capable, and that emotion fuels further action. In neuroscience, this is known as dopamine feedback. Each completed action, even a small one, creates a mini reward loop that reinforces progress. It's not about the size of the step. It's about signaling to your brain that you're moving. That's why 5 minutes of progress can change your entire day, because it transforms your mental state from avoidance to agency. The first 5 minutes checklist. Choose the task you've been avoiding. Don't overthink. Pick the one that bothers you most. Ask, what's the smallest possible action I can take toward this? Shrink it until it feels impossible to resist. Make that action take 5 minutes or less. The smaller, the better. Put that action at the top of your to-do list. It's your gateway. Nothing else happens until you open that door. Start. Don't think, move. Tell yourself, just 5 minutes. Ride the momentum if it comes. If you feel flow, keep going. If not, stop with pride. You've done what matters most. You began. You'll be amazed how many impossible projects collapse once you give them a 5-minute opening. Because the hardest part isn't the work, it's the wall between you and the work. The first 5 minutes rule demolishes that wall every single time. Convert project into a first action that takes less than or equal to 5 minutes. Open doc. List 3 bullets. Gather assets. Put that micro action at the top of your to-do. Completion triggers momentum chemicals, dopamine. Continue while the door is open. You don't need to finish to succeed. You just need to start. Because once you start, the mind shifts from resistance to rhythm. And that's when procrastination finally loses its power. Chapter 4. Break it small, then smaller. When you can't start, It's not because you're incapable. It's because the task feels too big to touch. Your brain sees a mountain and freezes, unsure where to begin climbing. The problem isn't that you lack motivation. It's that the size of the task overwhelms your nervous system. The bigger the task, the bigger the resistance. That's why one of the golden rules of anti-procrastination is this. When it feels impossible, make it smaller, and then smaller again. You can't conquer what your mind perceives as unmanageable, but you can always handle the next 10 to 20 minutes. If you still stall, split the task into units you can finish in 10 to 20 minutes. Your brain loves closure. It craves completion because every finished action gives you a dopamine hit, that internal chemical of satisfaction that tells your body you're making progress. The problem is when your goal is too big, your brain can't see completion anywhere in sight. It sees a vast, undefined effort with no end, so it does the easiest thing it can. It avoids. Breaking a task into small, finishable pieces tricks your brain into engagement. Instead of facing a vague, overwhelming mission like write a report, you face a clear, achievable step like write the introduction paragraph. It's no longer a monster. It's a meal cut into bites. Start with your large goal and divide it into the smallest, meaningful actions possible. Steps that take 10 to 20 minutes each. Each step should feel like a single, complete victory, not a fragment of frustration. For example, write 20-page report becomes draft outline, write intro paragraph, complete section 1, edit section 1, add visuals. Clean the apartment becomes organize desk, wash dishes, fold laundry. Launch a website becomes by domain, write homepage text, upload one photo, test layout. These bite-sized units transform a marathon into a series of short sprints. You no longer need to climb the mountain. You just need to take the next step. Name each unit with a verb plus object. The way you name your steps matters more than you think. Your brain needs action-oriented language to engage. Passive goals like work on project or think about idea are vague. They don't tell your mind what to do. But when you name each step using a verb plus object structure, draft intro paragraph, research competitor websites, edit slide 1, email client proposal, you transform intention into instruction. The brain follows clear commands better than abstract wishes. Think of yourself as giving your brain a list of physical actions, not mental burdens. Research, summarize, edit, record, organize. These are all verbs that demand motion. And motion breaks stagnation. When every unit begins with a verb, it instantly becomes startable. You know exactly what to do next. That precision replaces dread with direction. Here's an example transformation. Work on presentation, vague, heavy, intimidating. Draft slide headlines, specific, simple, actionable. This structure doesn't just make tasks easier, it builds momentum. Because each completed verb gives your brain a small reward, reinforcing the desire to keep going. Action breeds satisfaction. Satisfaction breeds action. That's how momentum snowballs. Track units completed, not hours endured. Traditional productivity advice tells you to track time spent. But hours mean nothing if they aren't producing progress. You can sit at your desk for 3 hours, working, and still accomplish nothing. That's not productivity, that's endurance. Instead of tracking how long you've worked, track how much you've completed. Count units finished, not minutes survived. For example, 3 hours spent writing feels draining. The difference is emotional payoff. When you track output, you give your brain evidence of success. And that evidence fuels motivation far more than simply counting time. This is called visible progress psychology, the principle that humans are addicted to seeing growth. When we can see our progress, we're more likely to continue. That's why progress bars, checklists, and streak counters are so powerful. They tap into our deep need for measurable advancement. You can create your own system. Write your tasks as 10 to 20-minute units. Cross them off as you complete each one. Watch your checklist shrink and your momentum grow. Every crossed-off task is a micro-victory, and your brain loves victories. Why this works? The psychology of micro-progress. When you complete something small, your brain releases dopamine. Not because you've achieved your end goal, but because you've made visible progress. That hit of dopamine increases focus, motivation, and confidence. But when you take on massive, unending tasks, your brain doesn't see progress, so it withholds the reward. You feel drained, stuck, and disinterested, even if you've technically been working. Breaking your task into small, finishable chunks turns every 10 to 20 minutes into a reward cycle. You work, you finish, you feel good, you repeat. That's how progress becomes addictive. You start seeking that next little win. Not because you're forcing yourself to work, but because your brain now wants to. You're not tricking yourself, you're training yourself. You're rewiring your mental circuitry to crave completion instead of fearing it. The break it small formula. Here's how to make any goal feel easy to start and satisfying to finish. Identify the project. Write the big task in one sentence. E.g., write blog post. Divide into 10 to 20-minute units. Ask, what can I fully finish in that time? Name each unit with a verb plus object. Draft intro paragraph. Edit section 1. Add call to action. List and track. Put these units in a checklist. Each completion gets crossed off. Focus on finishing units, not time. Aim for completion, not clock watching. You'll notice something remarkable. When you focus on units completed, you feel in control again. What felt massive becomes manageable. What felt endless becomes executable. Small tasks, big results. The difference between people who execute and people who procrastinate isn't willpower, it's unit size. The executors shrink their goals until they fit inside action. They measure progress in completions, not in duration. Because every large goal, every business built, every book written, every transformation achieved was just a series of small completions stacked together. You don't need to conquer the mountain. You just need to move one stone at a time. The truth is, your brain doesn't care how big the task is. It only cares whether it feels doable. And by breaking your work small, you remove resistance's favorite weapon, overwhelm. When you master smallness, you master motion. If you still stall, split the task into units you can finish in 10 to 20 minutes. Name each unit with a verb plus object, e.g., draft intro paragraph. Track units completed, not hours endured. Progress becomes addictive. Because progress doesn't come from pushing harder. It comes from shrinking smarter. When you make your goals small enough to start, you make your momentum strong enough to finish. Chapter 5. Time box everything. Work in containers. One of the biggest reasons people procrastinate isn't laziness, it's dread. Not the dread of work itself, but the dread of work without boundaries. You tell yourself, I'll just get started, but somewhere deep down, your brain knows that getting started could turn into an endless, undefined slog. No finish line, no control, no guarantee of rest. That's why you stall. Your brain resists because it doesn't trust you. It's learned through experience that I'll just work for a bit actually means I'm about to lose the next 3 hours. The solution? Time box everything. Create clear containers for your focus. Give your brain permission to start, an assurance that it will stop. Use 25 to 50-minute sprints with a visible timer. Stop on time. The power of the time box. A time box is a focused, non-negotiable block of time. A sprint dedicated to one task, followed by a pause. It could be 25 minutes, 40 minutes, or 50 minutes, depending on your capacity. The rule is simple. Once you start, you work on one thing only. When the timer ends, you stop. This technique might sound simple, but its psychology is profound. When you tell your brain, we're only doing this for 25 minutes, you remove the feeling of being trapped. The task goes from indefinite to finite, from suffocating to manageable. The brain stops resisting because it knows there's an end in sight. This short, structured burst of effort tricks your mind into focus and flow, because you're no longer fighting against forever. This is why short sprints, often called the Pomodoro technique, are used by elite performers, writers, programmers, and even athletes. The time limit converts vague effort into an urgent mission. You're no longer trying to work for hours. You're working for one defined container. One sprint equals 1 unit from Chapter 4. Remember Chapter 4. Break it small, then smaller. Each of those 10, 20-minute units becomes your perfect time box target. Think of it like this. 1 unit equals 1 sprint. 1 sprint equals 1 focused win. If your unit is draft intro paragraph, your time box might be 25 minutes. You start the timer, focus purely on that one goal, and when the timer rings, you stop. Even if the work feels incomplete, stop anyway. That clean ending is what gives you power over procrastination. It builds trust with your brain. You're proving that focus doesn't mean forever. It means contained intensity. Over time, this habit retrains your nervous system. You stop associating work with exhaustion and start associating it with accomplishment. You don't fear starting because you've built a pattern of ending. The science behind sprints. When you work without boundaries, your brain's attention drifts. Studies in cognitive science show that human focus naturally peaks in cycles, roughly 25 to 50 minutes, before fatigue or distraction sets in. After that, performance declines sharply. Time boxing harnesses that biological rhythm. It creates a wave of focus, then rest, allowing your mind to recharge before the next round. Each sprint becomes a focus recovery loop, the same principle professional athletes use to train. Intense bursts followed by rest. That's how you build endurance without burnout. And because you're working in defined containers, your brain stops fearing work. The overwhelm evaporates, replaced by structure and safety. Use a visible timer. Visibility is key. When you see time passing, whether it's on your screen, your phone, or a physical timer, it triggers urgency. It reminds your brain, this is temporary. Let's make it count. You're more likely to stay engaged when you can track your countdown in real time. Why? Because visibility activates your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for self-control, focus, and decision-making. The ticking clock converts abstract time into concrete accountability. So, set the timer where you can see it. When it starts, silence all distractions. When it rings, stop. That moment of stopping, that discipline of closure, is as important as starting. Stopping on time is the secret ingredient. Most people misunderstand productivity. They believe success means pushing past limits, working longer, and ignoring fatigue. But high performers know the opposite is true. Sustainable progress depends on clean endings. When you stop on time, you protect your mental energy. You create psychological safety around your work sessions. Your brain learns that focus doesn't mean endless effort. It means contained intensity followed by recovery. This makes you want to return. Why? Because dread fades when your brain knows the session has a guaranteed end. Think of it like the gym. You dread going when you imagine being trapped there for hours. But if you know it's just a 30-minute workout, the resistance disappears. Time boxing your work does the same. It transforms obligation into rhythm. Each time you stop cleanly, you reinforce the message. Work doesn't drain me. It empowers me. That's how you build consistency without exhaustion. How to time box everything. Here's how to make time boxing a daily weapon against procrastination. Pick one task, 1 unit. Choose a single, small task from your list, something you can realistically advance in 1 sprint. Set a visible timer. Use 25, 40, or 50 minutes, whatever suits your focus cycle. Commit fully for that time. Work in silence. Close tabs, silence notifications, and protect the container. Your brain performs best when distractions are impossible. Stop when time's up. Even if you're mid-flow, and cleanly. You're teaching your brain that work sessions end when you say so. Take a 5 to 10 minute break. Step away, stretch, hydrate, breathe. Don't switch to another mentally demanding task. Repeat or rest. If you're energized, begin another sprint. If not, stop for the day, because completion without burnout is still a win. The emotional benefit, trusting your work rhythm. Time boxing isn't just about managing effort. It's about managing emotion. Every cleanly ended sprint builds trust with your brain. You're proving that work doesn't equal endless suffering. When you trust your schedule, you no longer dread starting. You know what's coming, and more importantly, you know when it ends. That psychological safety lowers resistance, which means you will start more often and with less hesitation. Use 25 to 50-minute sprints with a visible timer. Stop on time. One sprint equals 1 unit from Chapter 4. Ending cleanly lowers dread about returning. Your brain trusts sessions won't sprawl. Because procrastination isn't just fear of effort. It's fear of infinite effort. When you time box your work, you prove that focus can have freedom. And that's when discipline stops feeling like pressure and starts feeling like power. Chapter 6. Reduce friction. Make starting frictionless. Procrastination doesn't always come from fear or laziness. Sometimes it comes from friction. Small, invisible barriers between you and the task that make starting feel heavier than it should. The human brain resists anything that requires too much activation energy. If opening a file takes too long, if finding the right document is a hassle, if your workspace feels cluttered or confusing, your mind starts whispering, maybe later. But here's the truth. Success doesn't come from doing harder things. It comes from making hard things easier to start. If you want to build unstoppable consistency, don't rely on motivation. Reduce friction. Make your environment, tools, and workflow so smooth that starting becomes effortless. Pre-stage tools the night before. Tabs, files, templates, water, charging. The science of friction. Your brain values ease more than effort. Every decision you make, every extra click, every search or setup adds micro friction. Tiny obstacles that deplete your mental energy before you've even begun. Psychologists call this activation cost, the energy required to start an activity. And here's the catch. Procrastination doesn't require huge barriers. It thrives on tiny inconveniences. You don't avoid writing because it's difficult. You avoid it because you have to find the right document, open your notes, remember where you left off, and decide where to begin. That mental load feels exhausting, so you push it off. Reduce that friction, and your resistance evaporates. Pre-staging, the billionaire habit. High performers don't wing it. They pre-stage their success. They prepare their environment so that when it's time to work, they can dive straight into motion without hesitation or setup delay. Pre-staging means getting tomorrow's work ready tonight. It's the simplest, most overlooked productivity multiplier in existence. Here's what it looks like in action. Open all necessary tabs or apps before you start the day. Keep your files and folders organized where you can access them instantly. Plug in and charge every device overnight. Laptop, camera, headphones, phone. Lay out your notebook, water bottle, and materials so they're waiting for you. Set your workspace to ready mode. When you wake up, there's no decision-making, no fumbling, no friction. You've already created momentum before the day begins. That's why billionaires, elite athletes, and top creators swear by evening preparation routines. It's not discipline, it's automation. They understand that success starts long before the workday begins. Because when the tools are ready, your mind becomes ready. One-click access. Eliminate every unnecessary step. Every extra click, tab, or login adds friction. You might not notice it consciously, but your subconscious does. It's the difference between flowing into work and fumbling into frustration. Simplify your access. Reduce the number of actions it takes to begin. Bookmark workspaces you use daily, Google Docs, Notion, Trello, Canva, etc. Pin folders to your file explorer for one-click access. Keep a default draft open, a blank document titled Start Here, so you never face a blank page. Use templates for repeated tasks like emails, reports, or videos to avoid repetitive setup. Log in once and save sessions where secure. The rule is simple. If you do it daily, it should take one click or less. Every unnecessary step is a chance for distraction to sneak in. If you need to search, type, or navigate through clutter, you'll end up wandering off to check messages, scroll, or stall. When your workflow is frictionless, you remove the brain's excuse to delay. Keep a ready-to-start checklist to remove decision fatigue. Decision fatigue is one of procrastination's most silent enemies. The more choices you have to make before starting, the less energy you have for doing. That's why creating a ready-to-start checklist can completely change your productivity. This checklist isn't about what you'll do. It's about what you'll set up so you can do it easily. Example checklist: laptop charged, workspace cleared, water bottle filled, main project file open, notes or outline visible, timer ready to start, distraction silenced, phone on do not disturb. When you complete this checklist, you're signaling to your brain, all systems go. You've eliminated uncertainty and replaced it with readiness. Now, starting doesn't feel like a leap, it feels like a slide. The psychological advantage of a frictionless start. Momentum thrives on ease. When the start is easy, your mind has no reason to negotiate. That's the difference between a sluggish morning and a productive one. When your tools, files, and environment are already aligned, your mind associates work with flow, not frustration. You start with confidence because nothing stands between you and execution. In neuroscience terms, you're reducing cognitive load, freeing your mental bandwidth for creativity and problem solving, instead of wasting it on logistics. Every ounce of friction removed increases your chance of starting by exponential margins, because your brain's threshold for effort is far lower than you think. The smaller the activation energy, the smoother the transition into action. Stacking this with time boxing and microtasks. When you combine frictionless setup, this chapter, with time boxing, chapter 5, and microtasking, chapter 4, procrastination loses all its power. You've removed every reason your brain has to delay. It's too big. You've broken it small. It'll take forever. You've set a timer. I don't know where to start. Your tools and setup are waiting. Now work feels simple. You're no longer pushing against resistance. You're flowing into readiness. You've built an on-ramp to action that makes productivity automatic. Friction is the enemy of flow. Most people think they need more discipline, but what they really need is less friction. Discipline gets you started once. Systems get you started forever. If you want to stay consistent without willpower, make the start of every task so smooth that your brain has no reason to resist it. That's what professionals do. That's what creators do. That's what billionaires do. They don't rely on mood. They rely on systems. Pre-stage tools the night before. Tabs, files, templates, water, charging. One-click access. Bookmark workspaces, pin folders, keep a default draft. Keep a ready-to-start checklist to remove decision fatigue. Because procrastination doesn't happen at the moment of doing. It happens at the moment of starting. Make that start frictionless, and you'll never have to fight for motivation again. Chapter 7. Kill Temptations, Environment Engineering. Procrastination doesn't always come from inside you. It often comes from around you. The environment you work in silently shapes your attention, habits, and discipline. You may think your lack of focus is a character flaw, but it's usually an environmental flaw. Every sound, every ping, every glance at your phone competes for your limited attention. And in a world built to steal it, staying focused isn't about willpower. It's about engineering your surroundings so distractions can't win. Your brain is programmable. It learns through association. So if you constantly work in a noisy, cluttered, or tempting environment, your brain starts linking work time with distraction time. But if you craft an environment that removes temptations, your brain starts linking work zone with focus zone. That's what environment engineering is, designing the space around you to make discipline automatic. Phone out of sight, out of reach on focus mode. The hidden cost of temptation. Every time you glance at your phone, check a notification, or switch tabs, your brain pays what scientists call a switching cost. It takes about 20 minutes for your attention to fully return to a deep state after a single interruption. Think about that. One quick scroll, one small check of social media, and you just fractured your focus for nearly half an hour. Distractions don't just waste seconds. They dilute your depth. They fragment your ability to think deeply, solve problems, and stay immersed in one flow state. That's why the most disciplined people don't fight distraction. They design it out. They don't rely on willpower to resist their phones. They simply remove them from the equation. Because temptation you can see is temptation you'll answer. Phone out of sight, out of reach on focus mode. Your smartphone is a portable casino. It's designed to hijack your dopamine system, to make you crave checking, scrolling, swiping, and refreshing. No matter how strong your willpower, you're fighting against billion-dollar algorithms optimized to capture your attention. So stop fighting. Start outsmarting. When it's time to work, put your phone physically out of sight. Out of sight means out of mind. Don't just flip it over. Put it in another room. Out of reach. Even the effort of standing up to grab, it interrupts momentum. Use focus or do not disturb mode. Filter out all but essential calls or notifications. Use app limits, if necessary, to block addictive platforms during working hours. Treat your workspace like a sacred zone. No phone, no noise, no digital chaos. The goal is not to resist temptation. It's to remove it entirely. If your phone must be near you, use it as a tool, not a toy. Let it serve your focus for timers, white noise, or tracking tasks, but nothing more. You'll be amazed how quiet your mind becomes when your phone stops whispering to it. Block distracting sites, apps, extensions. Work full screen, headphones on. The modern workspace is a digital minefield. Every tab, ping, and notification is a potential derailment. If you don't protect your focus, the internet will consume it. The solution: build barriers of friction between you and distraction. Block distracting sites. Use tools like Freedom, Cold Turkey, or Leech Block to restrict social media, YouTube, or news feeds during focus hours. Work full screen. Keep only one window visible, the one you're working on. Removing peripheral clutter narrows cognitive load. Headphones on. Use instrumental or ambient music or even white noise. Headphones aren't just for sound. They're a physical signal that you're in deep work mode. These small environmental tweaks signal to your brain, this space is for focus. And with repetition, your mind begins to treat that setup as sacred. Soon, the moment you put on your headphones or open your full screen window, your body knows it's time to work. You've conditioned your surroundings to trigger productivity instead of distraction. Physical cue, dedicated work zone spot. Your brain learns the association. Environment engineering isn't only about removing distractions. It's about creating anchors for attention. Every time you work in a consistent physical spot, your brain forms a neural association between that location and that mental state. This is called contextual conditioning. Think about it. Your bed tells your brain to sleep. The kitchen tells your brain to eat. The gym tells your brain to move. So create a space that tells your brain to focus. It doesn't need to be fancy, just consistent. A particular chair, corner, desk, or even a specific setup. When you sit there, you're not scrolling, chatting, or relaxing. You're working. That repeated association is powerful. Eventually, your brain stops negotiating. It automatically transitions into focus mode when you enter that environment. You've trained your surroundings to trigger discipline without needing motivation. The art of environmental design. Here's how to engineer an environment where procrastination can't survive. Designate a focus zone, a consistent spot where only focused work happens. No eating, scrolling, or entertainment there ever. Remove or silence all temptations. Phone out of sight and out of reach. Social media and non-work tabs closed or blocked. Notifications silenced across all devices. Use physical cues. Headphones equals focus signal. Clean desk equals mental clarity. Lighting and posture equals alertness. Automate your focus. Use focus modes that activate automatically during work hours. Schedule blockers that turn on without your effort. Set your workspace to ready each night so you can begin without friction. The goal is simple. Make distraction inconvenient and focus effortless. Discipline is easier when your environment works for you. You don't need to force yourself to concentrate when you design an environment where distraction is impossible. You don't need to summon willpower when your tools, space, and cues are all pushing you toward one direction: action. When your environment is optimized for focus, procrastination feels unnatural. You've removed the constant decision-making battle and replaced it with automatic alignment. Discipline becomes default, because in truth, you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And your environment is your system. Phone out of sight, out of reach on focus mode. Block distracting sites, apps/extensions. Work full screen, headphones on. Physical cue, dedicated work zone spot. Your brain learns the association. You can't always control your motivation, but you can always control your surroundings. When you build an environment that eliminates temptation and amplifies focus, you don't have to fight procrastination. You simply outsmart it. Chapter 8. Overcome task aversion. Make it pleasant enough. Sometimes, the reason you don't start isn't fear or confusion or perfectionism. It's simple. You just don't want to do it. The task feels boring, tedious, or uncomfortable. You know it's important, but every fiber of your being resists it. That's called task aversion. And it's one of the most common, most human forms of procrastination. Here's the truth. Not every task in life will excite you. Some will drain you. Some will test your patience. But discipline isn't about loving the work. It's about making the work tolerable enough to begin. You don't have to make every task fun. You just have to make it pleasant enough to stop avoiding it. Pair effort with a neutral reward. Instrumental music, tea, a comfy chair, never social media. Why you resist certain tasks. Task aversion isn't a character flaw. It's your brain protecting you from perceived discomfort. The mind avoids what it associates with pain, and pain, in this case, doesn't mean physical suffering. It can mean boredom, mental effort, uncertainty, or frustration. Every time you force yourself to do a task you hated, gritting your teeth, pushing through, feeling drained, your brain remembers that discomfort. Next time it says, no thanks. Let's check Instagram instead. That's how habits of avoidance form, through repeated negative association. Your brain begins to equate that task with punishment, not progress. So the cure isn't more willpower. It's reprogramming the association. You must teach your brain that the task doesn't have to feel awful, that it can coexist with calm, comfort, and maybe even mild enjoyment. That's how you make it pleasant enough. Pair effort with a neutral reward. Rewards are powerful, but only if they don't distract from the task itself. That's why social media, phone use, or multitasking don't count. They divide your attention instead of supporting it. The key is to pair your work with neutral rewards, small, soothing elements that make the experience gentler, not louder. For example, play soft instrumental music or ambient sounds while you work. Sip your favorite tea or coffee as you begin. Work from a comfortable chair or clean desk. Light a candle, use noise-canceling headphones, or open a window. These cues tell your brain, this isn't punishment, it's a calm ritual. Over time, the brain begins associating those positive sensory inputs with productivity. The same way music makes exercise easier, Comfort makes work easier. You're lowering the mental friction that keeps you from starting. Start with a 2-minute compassion warm-up. Before diving into the task, give yourself a moment of mental kindness. Because one of the biggest reasons you avoid difficult work isn't the task itself. It's how harshly you judge yourself for avoiding it. You think, I should have done this already. You scold yourself. Why can't I just focus like everyone else? You pile guilt on top of resistance, and the weight doubles. The cure? Compassion. Before you start, take 2 quiet minutes and say to yourself, it's okay to find this hard. It's okay that I've been avoiding it. I don't need to be perfect. I just need to begin. This simple self-talk calms the emotional centers of your brain, particularly the amygdala, and shifts you out of shame into acceptance. You stop fighting yourself, and that's when you finally gain enough energy to start. The compassionate mind begins where the critical mind stalls. You're not lowering standards, you're lowering resistance. Use temptation bundling. This strategy, coined by behavioral scientist Katie Milkman, is one of the smartest psychological hacks for overcoming task aversion. It's based on a simple rule. Only enjoy X, something pleasurable, while doing Y, something you resist. For example, only listen to your favorite podcast while cleaning or organizing. Only drink that fancy coffee when studying. Only watch your favorite YouTube channel while doing laundry. Only allow your favorite playlist when doing emails or admin tasks. By linking a task you avoid with a reward you crave, you retrain your brain's reward system. It begins to associate the boring task with a positive experience, turning avoidance into anticipation. Over time, your brain stops seeing the aversive task as punishment because it predicts the paired reward that comes with it. That's habit stacking at its finest. The psychology of pleasant enough. Notice that phrase, pleasant enough. You don't need to love the task. You just need to neutralize your resistance to it. The brain doesn't require excitement to start. It requires safety. When the task feels emotionally safe, not overwhelming, not punishing, not joyless, the nervous system relaxes and the logical brain regains control. You can think of it this way. Fear freezes, comfort releases. When your mind feels comforted through music, warmth, routine, or self-compassion, it no longer associates the task with pain. It reclassifies it as manageable. That's the sweet spot where discipline feels effortless. You're not tricking yourself. You're soothing your system into readiness. Build your pleasant enough ritual. Here's how to design your own routine to overcome task aversion. Identify the task you avoid. Something you dread but need to do regularly. Writing reports, studying, cleaning, admin work. Add neutral rewards. Choose small comforts that don't distract. Soft music, coffee, candlelight, or a cozy setup. Set a compassion cue. Before you begin, breathe deeply and remind yourself, it's okay to find this hard. I will start anyway. Bundle temptations strategically. Pair something you enjoy, podcast, snack, music, only with that task. Keep the focus gentle. Work in 25 to 50-minute sprints from Chapter 5. Stop on time and associate finishing with peace, not exhaustion. From resistance to ritual. The most disciplined people aren't immune to boredom or dread. They've simply built rituals that make effort pleasant enough to repeat. They don't depend on emotion. They depend on environment, reward, and rhythm. They've turned aversive tasks into anchored habits. When work feels a little easier, a little calmer, and a little more enjoyable, you stop negotiating with yourself. You just begin. And once you begin, you've already defeated procrastination. Pair effort with a neutral reward. Instrumental music, tea, a comfy chair, never social media. Start with a 2-minute compassion warm-up. It's okay to find this hard. I will start anyway. Use temptation bundling. Only enjoy X, podcast, snack, while doing Y, boring task. Because the goal isn't to love every task. It's to make even the hard ones bearable enough to begin. When work becomes gentle instead of punishing, Discipline stops feeling like a fight and starts feeling like self-respect. Chapter 9. Beat Perfectionism. Aim for version 0.1. If procrastination had a crown, perfectionism would wear it. It's the most deceptive, sophisticated form of delay because it disguises itself as high standards. You tell yourself you're not starting because you want it to be great, but the truth is you're not starting because you're afraid it won't be. Perfectionism paralyzes progress. It tells you that unless you can do something flawlessly, it's not worth doing at all. But progress doesn't come from flawless beginnings. It comes from messy starts. Every masterpiece began as a draft. Every innovation began as a broken idea. Every confident creator began with uncertainty. The cure for perfectionism is permission. Permission to be imperfect. Permission to be unfinished. You beat perfectionism not by lowering your standards, but by lowering the pressure at the start. That's why the rule is simple. First draft must be ugly by design. That's the rule, not the exception. The myth of ready. Perfectionists are experts at waiting. Waiting to feel inspired, to feel skilled, to feel ready. But readiness is a trap. You don't feel ready before you start. You feel ready because you start. The brain learns confidence through action, not preparation. When you wait for perfection, you're really waiting for certainty, and certainty never comes. That's why billion-dollar companies launch version 1.0 and sometimes even beta. They don't wait until every bug is fixed, every feature polished. They release, test, refine, and evolve. Because they know the truth, nothing improves without iteration. So instead of trying to create something perfect, create something possible. Aim for version 0.1, the simplest, roughest, most honest version of your idea. You can polish later, but first, you must produce something real. Separate creation from critique. The single biggest mistake perfectionists make is trying to create and critique at the same time. That's like driving with one foot on the gas and the other on the brake. You go nowhere. Creation requires freedom, space to experiment, explore, and express without judgment. Critique requires precision, focus, evaluation, and editing. When you combine the two, they cancel each other out. That's why creative professionals live by a golden rule. Draft now, edit later. You need to protect your creative flow from your inner critic. The voice that says this isn't good enough doesn't belong in the first sprint. Your only goal during creation is to get it out, not get it right. Think of your process as two separate rooms. The studio, where you create freely without rules. The lab, where you refine, improve, and analyze later. Never invite your critic into your studio. Let them wait in the lab until you have something worth fixing. This separation is how professionals move fast while amateurs freeze. The pro knows perfection is a phase, not a starting point. Keep a bad first draft template. To truly overcome perfectionism, you need to normalize imperfection, ritualize it. Create a bad first draft template, a document, a file, or even a physical note that reminds you your first version should be rough. Label it proudly. Version 0.1. This is supposed to be bad. When you open that file, your brain gets permission to be free. You're lowering the stakes before you even begin. You're not writing a final report. You're sketching ideas. You're not designing the perfect logo. You're throwing paint on the canvas. You're not coding a final product. You're building the prototype. This small psychological shift unlocks creative flow. It changes your question from, "Is this perfect?" to "What's next?" Because perfectionism kills momentum by focusing on flaws. Progress builds momentum by focusing on motion. The psychology of version 0.1. Your perfectionist brain resists starting because it confuses evaluation with creation. It's trying to protect your self-esteem because if you never start, you never fail. But that protection becomes a prison. When you allow yourself to create version 0.1, incomplete, awkward, even ugly, you bypass the fear of failure entirely. You shift the emotional goalpost from make it perfect to make it exist. Once it exists, the brain feels relief. The impossible task becomes possible. You've moved from 0 to 1, and that's the hardest leap in any endeavor. Neuroscience backs this up. Finishing a rough draft releases dopamine, the same motivation chemical that drives momentum. The mind doesn't reward quality first. It rewards completion. So every time you make something bad on purpose, you're not failing. You're training your brain to start. Ugly is the path to excellent. Every artist, entrepreneur, and innovator knows this. The first draft of a novel is chaos. The first version of a product is clunky. The first pitch is awkward. The first attempt is uncertain. But none of that matters, because you can't edit a blank page. You can only improve what exists. Ugly is not a flaw. It's the doorway to better. That's why professionals finish more than perfectionists ever start. They've accepted that quality comes from quantity. The more rough versions they produce, the faster they refine. You don't reach excellence by avoiding imperfection. You reach it by moving through imperfection. Practical steps to beat perfectionism. Create a version 0.1 mindset. Remind yourself, this first version is supposed to be rough. It's not failure, it's foundation. Use the bad first draft template. Name your file accordingly. Write freely without backspacing or editing for at least 15 minutes. Separate sessions for editing. When a creative sprint ends, stop. Only return later with fresh eyes for refinement. Celebrate completion, not perfection. Reward yourself for finishing a messy draft. Completion is progress. Revision will handle the rest. Repeat the cycle. Every draft gets cleaner. Every edit gets easier. Every version brings you closer to mastery. Progress over perfection. Perfectionism whispers, make it flawless. Discipline answers, make it real. The moment you accept imperfection as part of the process, you regain your creative freedom. You realize that the goal was never to be perfect. It was to be productive enough to evolve. Your first version doesn't need to impress anyone. It just needs to exist. Because action creates clarity, and clarity refines quality. First draft must be ugly by design. That's the rule, not the exception. Separate creation from critique. Draft now, edit later, new sprint. Keep a bad first draft template to normalize imperfection. Perfectionism isn't excellence. It's avoidance in disguise. Beat it by embracing imperfection as the path to progress. Because the person who dares to make it bad today is the one who perfects it tomorrow. Chapter 10. Tackle fear of failure, the small stakes protocol. Fear of failure is the most silent killer of potential. It doesn't shout, it whispers, "What if this doesn't work?" and then convinces you not to try. It keeps your dreams in drafts and your ideas in notebooks. It disguises itself as preparation, research, or waiting for the right time, when in truth, it's just fear wearing professionalism's mask. But the truth is simple and sobering. You will fail. Everyone does. Failure is not an interruption of progress. It's progress. It's the natural friction of learning, the feedback loop of mastery. What separates the successful from the stuck isn't the absence of failure. It's the speed of recovery. To beat the fear of failure, you must lower the stakes, reframe the meaning, and commit to cycles of improvement. That's the small stakes protocol, the mental blueprint for making failure safe, learning fast, and moving forward without hesitation. Lower the cost, private draft, tiny audience, limited scope. Step 1. Lower the cost of failure. The biggest reason you freeze before acting is because the perceived cost of failure feels too high. You're not afraid of making a mistake. You're afraid of being judged for it. That's why your brain turns small tasks into big threats. It equates imperfection with humiliation. The solution? Lower the cost. Make failing feel cheap, quiet, and recoverable. Start with a private draft, not a public launch. Write, design, or record for your eyes only. This transforms your fear from "what will they think" to "what can I learn?" Work with a tiny audience, a trusted peer, mentor, or small test group. Feedback feels less like exposure and more like collaboration. Keep your scope limited. Instead of building the entire project, create a pilot version, a 3-minute sample, a 1-page outline, a 24-hour test. When the stakes are small, the pressure vanishes. You reclaim the freedom to experiment. You start moving again, not because you're fearless, but because you've made fear affordable. Reframe outcome. This is a test to learn, not a verdict on me. Step 2. Redefine failure as feedback. Fear of failure comes from a false equation. If I fail, it means I'm not good enough. But that's not true. Failure isn't a verdict, it's data. It doesn't measure your worth. It reveals your method. Every failure contains information about what didn't work and what might work next time. That's why professionals treat failure as feedback. They don't take it personally. They take it usefully. Before you start any task, repeat this reframe to yourself. This is a test to learn, not a verdict on me. That sentence rewires your mindset. It shifts your focus from identity to information. You're no longer performing to prove yourself. You're experimenting to improve yourself. When you reframe like that, mistakes stop feeling like shame and start feeling like science. You move from self-criticism to curiosity. And curiosity is the ultimate antidote to fear. Commit to 3 iterations up front. Quality emerges from cycles, not waiting. Step 3. Build failure into the plan. The perfectionist plans to succeed once. The disciplined planner plans to fail and improve. That's the power of the 3-iteration commitment. Before you start any meaningful project, whether it's a presentation, product, video, or exam, promise yourself you'll make 3 versions. Version 1, the rough start. Fast, messy, instinctive. Version 2, the refinement. Edit, tweak, improve. Version 3, the polish. Tighten details and finalize. This removes the unrealistic expectation that the first try must be great. It normalizes imperfection. You've already decided you'll adjust and improve later, so the fear of getting it wrong loses its power. In neuroscience terms, this reprograms your reward system. The brain starts rewarding iteration instead of perfection. Each round becomes proof that you're learning, not failing. And something magical happens. You start producing more. Because you're no longer obsessing over correctness. You're focused on completion and evolution. That's how quality actually emerges. Not from waiting for brilliance, but from building it through repetition. Fear can't survive action. Fear thrives in delay. It feeds on what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. But the moment you move, fear loses oxygen. Because action gives you data, and data kills doubt. When you follow the small stakes protocol, lowering cost, reframing outcomes, and iterating freely, failure becomes just another tool in your growth process. It no longer defines you, it develops you. You start to see that fear of failure was never about failure itself. It was about identity. You were afraid of what it meant about you. But once you treat mistakes as part of the journey, your identity shifts from performer to learner. And learners never truly fail. They just collect evidence on the way to mastery. Practical steps to apply the small stakes protocol. Shrink the stage. Share your work privately first. Keep your scope small. 1 page, 1 test, 1 iteration. Reframe the goal. Replace "I must succeed" with "I must learn." Repeat before starting. This is a test to learn, not a verdict on me. Pre-commit to 3 versions. Expect imperfection in version 1. Promise to refine twice more. No judgment until iteration 3. Reward completion, not perfection. Celebrate hitting publish, not hitting perfect. Each completion earns momentum, the most powerful currency in progress. The freedom in small stakes. When the stakes are small, you move fast. When the cost of failure is low, creativity expands. When the outcome is about learning, not judgment, you finally feel free to act. The secret of success isn't eliminating fear. It's shrinking it until it can't control you anymore. So make the task smaller. Make the cost lighter. Make the learning louder. And then move, even imperfectly. Because confidence doesn't come from getting it right. It comes from proving to yourself that you can handle being wrong and still keep going. Lower the cost. Private draft. Tiny audience. Limited scope. Reframe outcome. This is a test to learn, not a verdict on me. Commit to 3 iterations up front. Quality emerges from cycles, not waiting. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's the ingredient of it. When you stop fearing failure, you stop delaying life. And that's the moment progress finally becomes inevitable. Chapter 11. End decision paralysis, default options. You don't just procrastinate because you're lazy. Often, you procrastinate because you're uncertain. Every decision, even the small ones, what tool to use, which file to open, what to name the document, where to start, quietly drains mental energy. That's the hidden enemy of action, decision fatigue. Your brain has a limited supply of daily decision-making power. Every choice, from breakfast to email, eats away at that reserve. By the time you sit down to work on something important, your mental battery is already half depleted from endless micro-decisions. This is why you freeze at the start of big tasks. It's not lack of discipline, it's decision overload. You haven't even begun, and your mind is already tired. The solution is beautifully simple. Remove decisions before you start. Automate your beginnings. Build systems that tell your brain, we've already decided. That's the art of ending decision paralysis, and it starts with default options. Pre-select defaults: tool, format, font, folder, naming convention. Step 1. Automate the small decisions. Most of your daily hesitation hides in repetitive, low-stakes decisions. What tool should I use? Where should I save this? What font? What format? These questions seem harmless, but they create cognitive friction, the drag that slows your start. Every moment spent deciding is a moment not spent doing. So eliminate the decision entirely. Create defaults for anything that repeats. Tool default. Always use the same app or platform for a given task. E.g., all notes in Notion, all scripts in Google Docs, all edits in one software. Format default. Decide once, font, size, and layout, and never change it unless absolutely necessary. Folder default. Pre-create folders for every category of work. No more thinking about where things go. Naming default. Choose a naming convention. E.g., YY_ project name. Consistency kills confusion. This system frees your mind from micro-decisions. It's like giving your brain a GPS that automatically knows where to go. No hesitation, no detour, no delay. The fewer choices you face, the faster you act. Create a decision ladder. If A, do B. If not, do C. Step 2. Build decision ladders. A decision ladder is a pre-made logic chain, a simple flow that removes uncertainty before it can stall you. It's your rule book for what to do next, so you don't waste energy overthinking. Here's how it works. You define conditions and responses. If A, do B. If not, do C. That's it. Examples. If the task takes under 5 minutes, do it now. If I'm unsure where to start, open my outline. If it's after 8 p.m., plan tomorrow. Don't start new work. If feedback feels unclear, ask one specific question. If I feel stuck, switch to a microtask. This structure does more than simplify. It gives you momentum insurance. Every potential stall point has a pre-decided escape route. You've taken the chaos out of choice. Decision ladders turn hesitation into direction, a powerful psychological shift. Because when the next step is obvious, you act automatically. Limit choices to 3. More options increase delay. Step 3. The rule of 3. More isn't better. More is paralysis. The human brain can effectively process only a handful of choices at once. Anything beyond that overwhelms working memory. That's why endless menus, multiple tabs, and sprawling task lists make you freeze. Choice overload kills clarity. So make it a rule. No more than 3 options for anything. 3 main projects per week. 3 priorities per day. 3 possible solutions to a problem. 3 tools for your workflow. When you force limitation, you force focus. 3 options provide variety without chaos. Enough to decide quickly, not enough to drown in decisions. And once you decide, lock it in. The biggest time waster isn't bad decisions. It's revisiting decisions you've already made. Decide once. Move on. The neuroscience of decision fatigue. Each decision burns glucose and mental energy. When you make too many small choices early in the day, you reduce your brain's ability to make important ones later. That's why world-class performers, from CEOs to athletes, ritualize their routines. They wear the same style of clothes, eat the same breakfast, follow the same schedule. Not because they're boring, but because they understand the cost of unnecessary choice. They save their energy for what matters. You can do the same. Automate your mornings. Standardize your workflow. Turn your creative time into a series of smooth, predictable actions so that the only thing your brain has to focus on is output. Create your default system. You don't need complex tools. You need consistent triggers. Here's how to build your default option framework. Choose your tools and stick to them. Decide once, writing app, design platform, file type. Remove the debate forever. Define your naming and folder conventions. Example, score project. Put every file in its proper folder the moment it's created. Pre-build templates. Have templates for common tasks, emails, outlines, reports. When the framework is ready, starting feels effortless. Make your decision ladder. Write simple if/then rules for common moments of confusion or delay. Apply the rule of 3. Whenever faced with too many options, cut them down to 3. Then decide fast. The emotion behind decision paralysis. Most decision paralysis isn't about indecision. It's about fear of regret. You're afraid of choosing wrong, of wasting time, of closing doors. But hesitation costs far more than imperfect action. You can correct a decision once you move. You can't correct indecision. It's motionless. So replace the goal of choosing right with the goal of choosing now. You'll learn faster, adapt better, and build momentum where others freeze. Remember, no decision is permanent, but every delay drains energy. Clarity is the real productivity hack. You don't need more hours. You need fewer choices. When everything has a place, a rule, and a rhythm, work stops feeling chaotic. You stop wasting effort on the start and start pouring it into progress. Decision paralysis disappears not because you've become braver, but because you've become clearer. Clarity is what turns thought into action. Pre-select defaults, tool, format, font, folder, naming convention. Create a decision ladder. If A, do B. If not, do C. Limit choices to 3. More options increase delay. Because productivity isn't about doing more. It's about deciding less. When your decisions are made by system, not emotion, you don't waste energy starting. You spend it finishing. Chapter 12. Use external commitments, social gravity. Left alone, motivation fades. Internal goals often dissolve into excuses because when no one's watching, quitting is easy. The human brain is wired to seek comfort, and without external pressure, it will always choose the path of least resistance. That's why some people work better under deadlines, coaches, or teams. They're not more disciplined, they're more accountable. Their goals have gravity because someone else knows about them. This is what I call social gravity, the invisible force that pulls your intentions into reality through external commitment. When you attach your goals to real people, your follow-through skyrockets. You move because you've built momentum beyond yourself. Announce deliverables with dates to a real person/community. Step 1. The power of public promises. When you keep your goals private, they stay optional. There's no real consequence if you fail to act. No friction, no accountability. But the moment you announce what you're doing to someone else, everything changes. You shift from I'll try to I must. Because now, your brain introduces a new motivator: social consistency. Psychologically, we're hardwired to avoid letting others down or appearing unreliable. We care deeply about coherence, the need for our actions to match our words. That's why announcing your deliverables is so powerful. When you say out loud, I'll send you the draft by Friday, or I'll upload my video next week, you've turned a wish into a commitment. You've added a mild but meaningful pressure, the kind that fuels follow through. But here's the key. Don't just announce vague intentions. Announce specific deliverables with dates. For example, I'll finish chapter 1 and send it by Tuesday at 8 p.m. I'll publish the new podcast episode this Friday. I'll submit my project outline before our meeting on the 10th. Specificity creates urgency. Deadlines create focus. People create accountability. That combination is how dreams stop being optional. Step 2. Book reviews or meetings, deadlines with witnesses. Internal deadlines are flexible. External ones are not. When you promise yourself, you can always negotiate. But when someone else is expecting you, your boss, your partner, your peer group, excuses vanish. This is why booked reviews or meetings are one of the most effective productivity tools on earth. They turn invisible work into visible obligation. If you want to guarantee progress, schedule a checkpoint with another person. Book a 30-minute meeting where you'll share what you've done. Set a feedback call with a mentor or peer. Arrange a review session with your team, even if your project isn't done yet. You're not doing this for approval. You're doing it for momentum. When your work has an audience, even a small one, your commitment deepens. You move differently when someone's waiting for you, because the brain treats external deadlines as non-negotiable. You can cancel on yourself 100 times, but once someone else is on the calendar, you show up. Step 3. Share progress snapshots, not promises. There's a subtle but crucial difference between saying, I'm going to do this, and saying, here's what I've already done. One builds pressure, the other builds proof. Empty promises feel good in the moment because they release dopamine. The brain rewards you just for declaring your goal. That's why people love announcing big plans online. It gives them a false sense of progress. But that's dangerous, because once you get the praise for starting, your motivation to finish drops. The antidote: don't share intentions. Share iterations. Show your work in progress, not your wish list. Post a screenshot of the first draft, a photo of your workspace, a note from your outline. Update your accountability partner. Here's what I finished today. Here's where I'm stuck, but I moved forward. These small snapshots turn your progress into a visible habit. You're not proving potential, you're proving effort. And progress, shared publicly, creates a self-reinforcing loop. You show your progress. People acknowledge it. You feel momentum. You keep going. That's social gravity at work. Each small act of follow-through strengthens the pull toward your goal. The psychology behind social gravity. Humans evolved in tribes. Survival depended on cooperation, trust, and accountability. Those instincts still govern our behavior today. When others are watching, or even when we believe they're watching, we perform better, stay consistent, and finish what we start. Neuroscientists call this the observer effect. Awareness of being seen changes behavior. You stand taller. You try harder. You endure longer. So use that to your advantage. Build small systems of observation around your goals. Join an online accountability group. Partner with a friend who checks in weekly. Post updates to a supportive community. Don't wait for motivation. Borrow accountability. It's stronger because external expectations transform effort from optional to inevitable. How to apply social gravity in daily life. Announce it clearly. Tell one person or one group. exactly what you'll do and when. Be specific and time-bound. Attach a public checkpoint. Book a feedback session, meeting, or post-update deadline. If it's on the calendar, it's real. Show progress, not promises. Instead of saying, "I will show I did," let results, even small ones, speak louder than intentions. Keep it human. Accountability works best when the person you share with genuinely cares about your progress. Choose allies, not audiences. Reward completion together. Celebrate each milestone with those who witnessed your commitment. Shared pride reinforces future discipline. Why external commitments work when motivation fails. Motivation is emotional. It fluctuates. Accountability is structural. It sustains. When you depend on motivation alone, every day is a negotiation between your goals and your moods. But when you depend on external commitments, your moods no longer matter. The deadline decides. That's why professionals create external pressure, even when they don't need to. It's not stress, it's structure. It keeps them sharp. It eliminates debate. And most importantly, it transforms "I'll try" into "I will." Announce deliverables with dates to a real person/community. Book a review or meeting. Deadlines that involve others increase follow-through. Share progress snapshots, not promises. Proof beats intention. Because consistency doesn't come from willpower. It comes from accountability. When you harness social gravity, your goals stop floating in someday. They gain weight. They gain witnesses. And that's when they finally become real. Chapter 13. Schedule energy, not just time. Most people plan their days like machines, slotting tasks into empty hours and assuming all time is equal. But you're not a machine. You're a biological rhythm, a constantly shifting cycle of energy, focus, and fatigue. Time management without energy management is like trying to drive a car by watching the clock. You'll move, but not efficiently. What truly drives performance isn't how many hours you schedule. It's when you use your best ones. To perform at your peak, you must stop scheduling by the clock and start scheduling by your energy curve. Map your peak focus window, AM/PM, and put the hardest unit there. Step 1. Discover your energy rhythm. You already have an internal productivity clock, your chronotype. It determines when your brain naturally peaks in alertness and when it dips into distraction. For most people, energy rises and falls in 3 predictable waves throughout the day. Peak, the 2 to 4 hour window when your focus, logic, and willpower are strongest. Trough, the post-lunch dip or fatigue phase when you lose focus. Recovery, a creative but lighter window later in the day when your energy returns, but your discipline softens. The key is to map your peak focus window, that sacred time when you're naturally sharp, and defend it like your life depends on it. If you're a morning person, schedule your hardest, most cognitively demanding work in the first 2 to 3 hours after waking. If you're an afternoon person, your best work may happen between 2 to 6 p.m. If you're a night owl, protect your late-night creative window when distractions disappear. Observe yourself for 1 week. Track when your mind feels most alive, not just awake, but locked in. That's your power window. Then, make this rule non-negotiable. Hardest task first during peak energy. If your brain is sharpest at 9 a.m., don't waste that time answering emails or scrolling through messages. Use it for your most important unit from Chapter 4, the deep, mentally heavy work that actually moves your goals forward. Cluster shallow tasks elsewhere to protect deep work. Step 2. Protect the peak, contain the chaos. Your deep work hours are sacred. Treat them that way. Most people lose their best focus time to small, shallow tasks. Emails, texts, errands, notifications, or meetings. Each interruption fractures focus, burns mental fuel, and destroys the possibility of flow. So invert your schedule. During your peak hours, do your deep work, writing, planning, analyzing, designing, or creating. No messages. No multitasking. During your low-energy hours, handle shallow tasks, emails, admin work, scheduling, small updates, errands. This simple shift can double your daily output without increasing your effort because you're matching task difficulty to energy quality. Deep work requires high energy, low interruption, and total concentration. Shallow work thrives in lower energy periods because it demands less focus and more repetition. Protecting your peak means creating hard boundaries. Block your calendar for deep work. Silence notifications during your peak block. Tell others when you're unavailable. Because every shallow task you do during your best hours is a theft from your future self. Sleep, hydration, movement. 1% better physiology equals 20% better execution. Step 3. Treat your body as your productivity engine. You can't out-discipline your biology. Your mind runs on your body's fuel, and when your physiology crashes, your focus follows. The difference between high energy and low energy isn't luck, it's maintenance. Think of your body as your execution engine. Every small improvement in your physiology compounds massively in your performance. 1% better health equals 20% better execution. That's not poetic exaggeration. That's neuroscience. Your brain consumes 20% of your body's total energy supply. When you're dehydrated, sleep-deprived, or sedentary, your cognitive function plummets, focus fractures, creativity dies, and motivation collapses. So, build a baseline of energy habits that make discipline sustainable. Sleep. Protect 7 to 8 hours. Sleep debt doesn't just make you tired. It destroys attention span, memory, and decision quality. Hydration. Dehydration as small as 2% can impair focus. Start a day with water, not caffeine. Movement. 10 to 15 minutes of morning exercise boosts dopamine and oxygen flow, priming the brain for productivity. Nutrition. Stable energy beats sugar spikes. Protein, fiber, and hydration before carbs sustain clarity longer. These aren't lifestyle tips. They're strategic performance levers. Your habits of rest, fuel, and movement define how well your mind performs when it matters most. The energy scheduling formula. To master energy-based planning, follow this 3-step framework. Map your energy curve. Identify your peak, trough, and recovery times. Test it for a week. Journal your focus, fatigue, and creativity levels hourly. Match work to energy. Peak equals deep work, creation, strategy, analysis. Trough equals admin, shallow work, logistics. Recovery equals creative or reflective tasks, planning, brainstorming. Support the system with physiology. Prioritize sleep and hydration. Move before your deep work session. Eat for clarity, not comfort. The science of flow and fatigue. Flow, that effortless state of total absorption, happens when skill meets challenge and energy meets timing. You can't enter flow when you're drained or distracted. You can't force deep work when your biology is begging for rest. By aligning your work with your natural energy rhythm, you make flow predictable. You're not pushing your body uphill. You're riding its natural momentum. That's why elite performers, from athletes to CEOs, all guard their peak windows. They know the difference between a good day and a great one isn't in hours. It's an energy placement. Don't manage time, master momentum. You can't control the clock, but you can control how much of yourself you bring to each moment. Discipline is easier when your body supports it. Focus is deeper when your environment aligns with it. Execution is smoother when your energy matches your task. So stop asking, when do I have time? Start asking, when do I have energy? That single question can multiply your productivity, reduce burnout, and finally make your effort feel effortless. Map your peak focus window, AM/PM, and put the hardest unit there. Cluster shallow tasks elsewhere to protect deep work. Sleep, hydration, movement. 1% better physiology equals 20% better execution. Because time doesn't create results. Energy does. And once you learn to manage your energy, every hour you work becomes worth 10 times more. Chapter 14. Automate the start, trigger stacking. The hardest part of any task isn't the middle, it's the start. Getting your brain from I should to I'm doing it is the heaviest lift in the entire discipline process. Once you begin, momentum carries you forward. But before that first movement, resistance feels like a wall. The secret to making action automatic is simple. You don't fight resistance every day. You train your brain to skip it. You do this through a psychological method called trigger stacking, attaching your work to a consistent, familiar cue until it becomes a reflex. It's not about motivation. It's about mechanics. Attach work to a stable daily cue. After coffee, sit, timer on, first unit. Step 1. Make work follow a cue, not a feeling. Humans are creatures of rhythm. We think we make conscious decisions every morning, but most of what we do is automated. Wake up, brush teeth, check phone, pour coffee. Each of these isn't a decision. It's a trigger behavior. One action automatically leads to another. The mistake most people make is trying to decide to work. Decision requires energy. Decision invites debate. Decision opens the door to delay. Instead, remove decision entirely. Link your work to something that already happens automatically. That's trigger stacking. For example, after I pour my coffee, I sit at my desk, open my laptop, and start the timer. After I finish brushing my teeth, I write my daily priorities. After I feed the dog, I open my notes and start the first unit. After I get dressed, I open my today's deep work file. By connecting your work start to a daily ritual, you hijack your brain's autopilot. You're not forcing yourself to start. You're sliding into it. Your cue becomes your commander. Step 2. Keep the ritual identical for 7 to 10 days. Your brain learns through association. The more consistent your sequence, the faster it becomes unconscious. That's why it's critical to keep the start of your workday identical for at least 7 to 10 days. Same time, same spot, same trigger, same first move. This repetition builds a neural groove, a shortcut that tells your mind, when this happens, we work. Within days, the cue itself will spark readiness. Your body will sit down before your mind can argue. Think of it like muscle memory for productivity. You're conditioning your nervous system to associate one cue, coffee, desk, timer, with one outcome, start working. This is why professional athletes perform the same warm-up every time. It's not superstition, it's neural conditioning. Their bodies learn that these exact motions lead to game time focus. You can do the same with your mind. For instance, pour coffee, sit down, open project, start timer for 25 minutes. Begin first 5-minute task. If you repeat this exact sequence for a week, your brain will begin working before you even realize you started. You'll stop needing to psych yourself up. The ritual itself will carry you into flow. Step 3. Remove variability. Reduce friction to 0. Every ounce of variability adds hesitation. If you have to decide where to work, when to start, or which task to begin with, you're creating unnecessary friction. The goal is to make your start so predictable that it's impossible to resist. That means same workspace. A consistent physical or digital environment signals focus mode. Same time. Even a 30-minute window creates rhythm and reliability. Same first action. Starting with the same first unit, see Chapter 4, removes uncertainty. Same sensory cues. Music, lighting, smell, or even posture can serve as anchors. When your ritual is consistent, resistance has nowhere to hide. You're no longer debating, you're following a script. Because discipline isn't about making 100 decisions every day. It's about designing a system that makes them for you. Why trigger stacking works? Trigger stacking leverages a powerful neurological process called context-dependent learning. When you perform an action repeatedly in the same context, your brain stores the state, the environment, emotions, and sequence as one unified memory. That's why just walking into a gym can make you feel ready to work out, or why hearing certain music makes you feel creative. Your brain has paired cue action outcome. By building a reliable start ritual, you're essentially writing that same pattern into your neural circuitry. Cue coffee, action sit, open doc, outcome flow. After enough repetitions, it becomes self-triggering. You'll begin before your conscious mind even participates. That's how top performers build unstoppable consistency. Not by waiting for willpower, but by programming automation. Stack your triggers like dominoes. Here's how to set up your own trigger stack system. Identify your anchor cue. Pick something you do every day without fail: coffee, breakfast, brushing teeth, sitting down, opening blinds. Attach your work start to it. After IQ, I will first action. Keep it tiny. Open your file, set your timer, or write one line. Repeat the exact sequence daily. Don't change the cue or order for 7 to 10 days. You're building a groove, not variety. Keep it ridiculously simple. Don't over-engineer the ritual. The easier it is to perform, the faster your brain automates it. Expand later, never sooner. Once the start is automatic, you can stack new habits on top of it. Longer sessions, different projects, or even exercise routines. Automation is the ultimate discipline. True discipline doesn't mean fighting yourself daily. It means not needing to fight at all. The goal is never to rely on motivation again. When your trigger stack runs smoothly, starting work feels as natural as brushing your teeth. It's not emotional, it's habitual. It doesn't drain you, it initiates you. Each repetition strengthens the circuit. Each circuit weakens resistance. Until one day you realize you've stopped procrastinating altogether. Not because you got tougher, but because you got smarter. Attach work to a stable daily cue. After coffee, sit, timer on, first unit. Keep the ritual identical for 7 to 10 days. Your brain learns the groove. Remove variability. The same open moves reduce friction to near zero. Because starting shouldn't feel like a battle. It should feel like breathing. When you automate the start, you don't chase discipline. You become it. Chapter 15. Measure inputs, not just outcomes. Most people fail to stay consistent not because they lack effort, but because they measure the wrong things. They obsess over results they can't fully control: views, sales, grades, recognition, validation, and forget to measure the only thing they actually can control: their inputs. Discipline isn't about chasing outcomes. It's about showing up for the process again and again and again, long enough for results to catch up. When you start tracking inputs, not just outputs, you stop judging yourself by luck and start improving through leverage. Track sessions completed, minutes worked, units shipped, all controllable. Step 1. Track what you can control. Outcomes are unpredictable. Markets fluctuate, people react, algorithms change, results vary. You can influence these things, but you can't command them. That's why tying your motivation to outcomes is a guaranteed emotional roller coaster. You feel good when results are up. You crash when they're not. That instability breaks consistency. But inputs? Inputs are yours. They're the cause of success, not the symptom. Inputs are the measurable, controllable actions that build momentum. Sessions completed. Minutes worked in deep focus. Units shipped, emails sent, pages written, workouts done, problem solved. Time invested in learning or creation. When you track those, you transform work from outcome anxiety to process mastery. Because the goal isn't to control the result, it's to control the rhythm. If you wrote for 45 minutes today, you won. If you completed 3 focus sprints, you won. If you shipped 1 small deliverable, you won. Small wins compound. Outcomes follow. Step 2. Build a visible streak board. Never break the chain. Human psychology loves progress it can see. That's why progress bars, step counters, and streak trackers are addictive. They give your brain visible proof of effort. This principle is called the success loop. When you see evidence of consistency, your brain releases dopamine, not for results, but for effort. That makes discipline feel rewarding in itself. To harness this, build a visible streak board. It could be a wall calendar, a notebook grid, or a digital tracker. Every day you complete your work session, mark a big visible X. Day after day, those marks will form chain. Your new rule: never break the chain. This is how Jerry Seinfeld built his legendary writing discipline. Not by chasing perfect jokes, but by refusing to let a single day go unmarked. Even one small action per day counts. The streak doesn't measure how much you did. It measures that you showed up. And that's what separates amateurs from professionals. Miss a day? Don't restart from guilt. Restart from momentum. The streak's purpose isn't perfection, it's persistence. Because once you see that chain grow, your brain starts craving continuity. You become addicted to showing up. Step 3. Weekly review. Adjust the system, not the self. Discipline isn't about blind repetition. It's about intelligent iteration. Once a week, take 10 to 15 minutes to review your inputs and results. Ask yourself 3 questions. What got done? Count your sessions, time blocks, or tasks completed. Acknowledge the effort, not just the outcome. What blocked progress? Was it distraction, poor planning, low energy, unclear goals? Identify friction points so you can remove or reduce them. What can I change next week? Adjust systems, not your identity. Maybe shorter sprints work better. Maybe your energy peak shifted. Optimize the process, not the person. This review keeps your growth visible and your improvement continuous. You're no longer reacting emotionally to good or bad days. You're evolving strategically. Because discipline isn't about doing the same thing forever. It's about refining your rhythm until it works flawlessly. The psychology of process-based measurement. When you focus on outcomes, you live in the future, a place of uncertainty and anxiety. When you focus on inputs, you live in the present, a place of control and clarity. The human brain thrives on certainty. That's why measuring controllable actions feels more stable and motivating. You're building a direct cause and effect connection. When I show up, I grow. This shift rewires your reward system. You begin associating pride not with achievement, but with consistency. That's when you unlock sustainable motivation. Not the spike of a win, but the quiet satisfaction of reliability. Practical framework, the input tracker. Here's how to measure progress like a professional. Define your units. What's your core measurable action? Pages written, minutes practiced, reps completed, lessons learned, sessions finished. Set a daily minimum. The smallest effort that counts as success. 25 minutes of deep work. 1 page written. 10 outbound calls. Track visibly. Use a calendar, app, or board. Cross off every successful day. Protect the chain. Do whatever it takes not to skip 2 days in a row. Consistency beats intensity. Review weekly. Celebrate effort. Adjust systems. Remove friction. When you build your week around measurable inputs, your results stop feeling random. They become inevitable. The compound effect of consistency. Every streak, no matter how small, compounds into confidence. Every tracked input trains your brain to trust your own follow-through. This is why elite performers rarely chase goals. They chase systems. They know that a good day isn't when success happens. It's when habits fire automatically. The scoreboard isn't out there in the world. It's in your tracker, your streak board, your visible proof of effort. Because success doesn't belong to those who dream the biggest. It belongs to those who count their steps. Track sessions completed, minutes worked, units shipped, all controllable. Use a visible streak board. Never break the chain. Weekly review. What got done? What blocked? What to change? Iterate your system. Because discipline isn't about chasing perfection. It's about measuring persistence. When you master your inputs, your outputs become inevitable. Chapter 16. Reward the right thing. Process perfection. We are wired to chase what we reward. If you only reward yourself for perfect results or big achievements, your brain learns that progress isn't enough. It starts associating effort with frustration instead of fulfillment. And that's how discipline dies, not from lack of effort, but from delayed satisfaction. The solution is simple, powerful, and deeply psychological. Stop rewarding perfection. Start rewarding process. Discipline isn't built through achievement. It's built through reinforcement. When you reward the right thing, the act of showing up, starting, and completing small units, you train your brain to crave consistency instead of perfection. Reward session starts and unit completions, not grand finishes. Step 1. Reward the behavior, not the outcome. Most people make the mistake of setting rewards at the finish line. I'll celebrate when I lose 10 kilos. I'll rest when I finish the project. I'll feel proud when I succeed. The problem? The brain doesn't learn from later. It learns from now. Your dopamine system, the neurochemical engine behind motivation, doesn't wait for long-term goals. It responds to immediate reinforcement. When you reward the act of starting, your brain marks that behavior as valuable and begins craving the feeling again. This means, don't wait to celebrate finishing the book. Celebrate the session you sat down to write. Don't reward only perfect workouts. Reward showing up to the gym. Don't praise yourself only when the goal is done. Praise yourself when the next brick is laid. The more you reward the behavior, the more automatic it becomes. Because what you reinforce, you repeat. Step 2. Keep rewards immediate and small. To wire habits deeply, the reward must come right after the behavior, within seconds or minutes. That's how you close the habit feedback loop. Big rewards that come too late, vacations, parties, bonuses, don't build habits, they celebrate outcomes. Small, immediate rewards build consistency. Here are examples of small reinforcements that actually work. Standing up and stretching after finishing a focused sprint. Taking a sip of your favorite tea after completing a task. Marking an X on your streak board, see Chapter 15. Saying out loud, "Nice work, that's one more down." Listening to a short, uplifting song between sessions. These are micro rewards, small enough not to distract you, strong enough to release dopamine. The trick is immediacy. Your brain doesn't care how fancy the reward is. It cares how fast it comes. Every time you reward effort quickly, you reinforce the identity of someone who acts. Over time, starting feels less like effort and more like satisfaction. Step 3. Create a bigger reward system for streak milestones. Small, frequent rewards build daily consistency, but long-term motivation thrives on milestones. That's why you need periodic, bigger rewards to anchor your progress emotionally. They act as checkpoints, proof that effort compounds into something real. Set tangible rewards for streaks. 7 days. Treat yourself to something small, a meal, movie, or guilt-free rest. 21 days. A slightly bigger indulgence. New gear, a book, a self-care day. 50 days. A meaningful celebration, something that feels earned, not impulsive. These milestone rewards remind you that you're not just building habits. You're becoming someone new. The reward isn't the item or experience. It's the reinforcement of identity. Every celebration says, "This is who I am now." An identity-based reinforcement is the deepest motivation of all. Step 4. Make rewards visible and intentional. Never let your rewards be random or unconscious. Scrolling social media or snacking after work might feel like a reward, but they're accidental. They dilute your conditioning. Instead, design your rewards intentionally. Pick them before you start your session. Keep them simple and within your control. Tie them directly to specific milestones, not moods. Example, when I finish my next 25-minute focus block, I'll have a 5-minute walk outside. When I complete my 5th consecutive session this week, I'll buy that book I wanted. This intentionality makes your brain expect the reward, not stumble into it. The expectation itself becomes a motivator. Step 5. Use micro-celebrations for every small win. Humans respond powerfully to acknowledgement, even from themselves. That's why self-congratulation isn't arrogance. It's reinforcement. Every time you finish a focus sprint, say something positive to yourself. Nice, that's another one. Or we're doing it. It may sound trivial, but this simple habit trains your nervous system to associate effort with emotional reward. The more joy you attach to starting, the less resistance your brain creates next time. When you celebrate tiny wins, you teach your brain that progress feels good, not draining. And when work feels rewarding in the moment, motivation becomes self-sustaining. Why rewarding the process works better than rewarding perfection. Perfection is inconsistent. It can't be achieved daily. But the process happens every day. When you make progress, the metric and consistency, the currency, you no longer burn out chasing impossible standards. You become addicted to momentum instead of misery. This is how true discipline grows, not from suffering, but from positive reinforcement. You no longer need to bully yourself into productivity. Your brain wants to keep going because it's no longer waiting for perfection to feel proud. The process perfection framework. Here's how to install it into your system. Define the rewardable actions. Starting a session, completing a unit, Chapter 4. Finishing a sprint, Chapter 5. Add immediate micro rewards. Stretch, check mark, or short break right after. Always within 60 seconds. Mark visible proof. Use a streak tracker, progress bar, or visual log. Set bigger milestones. Reward at 7, 21, and 50 days, something meaningful, not random. Celebrate without comparison. Your streak is yours alone. The victory isn't showing up. Redefine the win. You're not rewarding results. You're rewarding reliability. Every small session completed is a deposit into your identity as someone who finishes what they start. Each reward reinforces that identity until it becomes who you are, not just what you do. Perfection gives you occasional glory. Process gives you permanent progress. Reward session starts and unit completions, not grand finishes. Keep rewards immediate and small to reinforce habit wiring. Periodic bigger rewards for streak milestones, 7, 21, 50 days. Because discipline doesn't grow from punishment. It grows from positive repetition. When you reward the right thing, motivation becomes automatic, and progress becomes inevitable. Chapter 17. Handle setbacks fast. The 24-hour reset. Perfection is a myth. Consistency is human. No matter how disciplined you are, you'll miss a day. You'll skip a session. You'll lose momentum. That's not failure. That's friction. The difference between people who grow and people who give up isn't whether they fall. It's how fast they get back up. The best performers in any field aren't flawless. They're fast resetters. They don't dwell in guilt. They diagnose and resume. They've learned the ultimate productivity rule. If I fall off, I fix it within 24 hours. That's the 24-hour reset. It's not about never missing. It's about never staying missed. Missed a day? No guilt spiral. Apply the next 24 hours rule, 1 micro win. Step 1. Kill the guilt spiral immediately. When you miss a day, your mind instantly attacks you with shame. I ruined my streak. I'm losing my discipline. I failed again. But guilt doesn't build consistency. It breaks it. The guilt spiral turns one missed day into a missed week. Shame becomes paralysis. You don't need punishment. You need momentum. So, the first rule of the 24-hour reset is no self-criticism. You're not broken. You're bouncing. Replace I fail with I paused. That single word changes your mental direction. You didn't destroy your system. You just hit friction. And friction doesn't need forgiveness. It needs forward motion. Step 2. Apply the next 24 hours rule. When you miss a day, your recovery clock starts immediately. You have 24 hours to get 1 micro win, no matter how small. That win resets your streak emotionally and mentally. Your new goal isn't to make up for the missed time, it's to restore momentum. Examples of a micro win. Write 1 paragraph. Do 5 push-ups. Read 1 page. Review your notes for 2 minutes. Plan tomorrow's deep work block. The size doesn't matter, only the speed of action. You're re-establishing the behavior loop before resistance solidifies. When you move quickly, you prevent your brain from labeling the setback as failure. You prove to yourself that a slip isn't an ending. It's a restart signal. And the faster you restart, the shorter your recovery curve. Step 3. Diagnose briefly, 60 seconds only. After every miss, do a 60-second reflection. No journaling marathons, no emotional overanalysis. Just answer 3 questions quickly. What blocked me? Fatigue? Distraction? Poor planning? Low energy? What can I adjust next time? Earlier session? Smaller unit? Fewer distractions? What's my next action? Pick one and do it immediately. That's it. 1 minute. The goal isn't deep introspection. It's rapid correction. Think of it like a pilot mid-flight. When turbulence hits, they don't pull the plane over to cry. They adjust altitude and keep flying. That's how you treat your discipline. Data, not drama. The 24-hour reset turns setbacks into signals. You stop judging them emotionally and start treating them strategically. Step 4. Adjust 1 lever, not everything. When you fall off track, your instinct is to overhaul your whole system. New planner, new schedule, new tools. But that's just disguised panic. The truth? You rarely need a revolution. You just need a tweak. Find the smallest friction point and fix 1 lever. If you skipped because of fatigue, move your session earlier. If it was distraction, change your environment. If it was boredom, reduce task size or refresh the challenge. If it was overwhelm, shrink the next step to a 5-minute action. By adjusting 1 lever, you keep your identity stable. You're not rewriting the system, you're realigning it. That's how professionals recover fast. They tweak, not trash. Step 5. Redefine recovery. It's about speed, not streaks. Most people define success as never breaking the streak. But in reality, streaks aren't lost through breaks. They're lost through delays. The key isn't perfection, it's velocity of recovery. Every time you bounce back within 24 hours, you prove that discipline is still alive. You train your brain to see setbacks as short, survivable events, not as identity crises. In neuroscience terms, this rewires your habit resilience loop, a system where every bounce reinforces strength instead of shame. It's not never miss. It's never miss twice. That's the real mark of mastery. The 24-hour reset framework. Pause guilt immediately. Don't attack yourself. Replace I fail with I paused. Next 24 hours equals 1 micro win. Any small action counts. The faster, the better. Diagnose in 60 seconds. Identify the block. Adjust 1 thing. Move forward. Fix 1 lever only. Keep systems intact. Change a single weak link. Reset your identity. You're not rebuilding discipline. You're resuming it. The psychology of fast recovery. When you bounce back fast, you interrupt the brain's failure narrative. Each quick recovery weakens the mental pattern of I can't and strengthens I continue. Over time, this makes you anti-fragile. Setbacks stop breaking you. They start building you. You become someone who expects to stumble, but knows exactly how to stand again. That's what separates temporary motivation from permanent mastery. Momentum, perfection. Momentum forgives mistakes. Perfection punishes them. The goal isn't to stay flawless, it's to stay moving. Every time you recover within 24 hours, you keep your rhythm intact. It doesn't matter how many times you fall. It matters how short the distance is between falling and starting again. Missed a day. No guilt spiral. Apply the next 24 hours rule. 1 micro win. Diagnose briefly, 60 seconds. Adjust 1 lever. Resume. Streaks recover by speed of reset, not by shame. Because discipline isn't destroyed by failure. It's destroyed by hesitation. Fall fast. Reset faster. And soon, you'll realize you never really fell at all. You just restarted evolution. Chapter 18. Build an identity of action. The final stage of unbreakable discipline isn't just about habits. It's about who you believe you are. Because behavior follows identity. You'll always act like the person you believe yourself to be. If you think, I'm lazy, you'll subconsciously look for proof that you are. If you think, I'm inconsistent, you'll forgive inconsistency. But if you decide, I'm a finisher, your mind begins to protect that truth. That's the psychology of identity. Once you name yourself, your brain fights to stay consistent with that name. To stay disciplined for life, you must stop chasing motivation and start becoming the kind of person who acts. That identity, the identity of action, is the ultimate source of momentum. Language shift. I'm a finisher. I start before I feel ready. Step 1. Rewrite your inner language. Your inner dialogue is not commentary. It's code. Every word you use to describe yourself becomes an instruction to your subconscious mind. When you say, I procrastinate, you're not describing a pattern. You're reinforcing it. The brain loves coherence. It wants your actions to match your self-concept. So if your identity says, I'm someone who hesitates, your mind will find ways to hesitate, just to stay consistent. The solution is not fake positivity. It's deliberate self-programming. Change your identity language to statements of action. Say, I'm a finisher. I start before I feel ready. I move fast on decisions. I'm the type who keeps promises to myself. I don't need perfect conditions. I create them. These phrases aren't affirmations. They're commands. Every time you repeat them, you carve a new mental groove, a behavioral shortcut that says, action first, emotion later. Because your identity becomes your autopilot. Step 2. Keep a wins log. Train your self-concept. Discipline isn't just about what you do. It's about what you notice you've done. Most people forget their wins and remember their failures. That imbalance creates a false self-image. Someone who never finishes, even though they've completed hundreds of things. To rebuild self-trust, you need proof of progress. That's why you must keep a wins log. Every day, record 1 to 3 moments when you acted, even in small ways. Open the laptop and wrote for 20 minutes. Chose water instead of soda. Sent the email I'd been avoiding. Did the workout even though I felt tired. Each entry is a receipt, evidence that you are a person of action. Over time, this collection becomes your identity anchor. When your brain says you're not disciplined, your wins log proves otherwise. Because evidence destroys doubt faster than motivation ever could. And the more proof you gather, the more you start to believe it. Not as wishful thinking, but as reality. You're no longer trying to be disciplined. You simply are. Step 3. Protect your identity with boundaries. Once you start building an identity of action, you must guard it fiercely. Because every yes to distraction is a no to the finisher inside you. People, tasks, and habits that contradict your identity will constantly pull at your focus. You need boundaries. Not because you're rigid, but because you're clear. Protect your finisher identity by refusing things that dilute it. Say no to time thieves, meetings without purpose, conversations without value, scrolling without awareness. Say no to perfection traps, the belief that you must prepare more before beginning. Say no to emotional sabotage, guilt, comparison, or fear that interrupts momentum. You're not avoiding people or obligations. You're protecting your alignment. Your discipline depends on your environment, respecting who you've decided to become. Because identity isn't just who you are when you act. It's who you protect when you choose. Step 4. Reinforce through rituals. Identity isn't formed in declarations. It's formed in repetitions. You don't become a finisher by saying it once. You become a finisher by proving it daily through small, deliberate acts. Design micro-rituals that reinforce your new identity. Start every morning by saying, I start before I feel ready. Then do one small action to prove it. End every day by reviewing your wins log, physical evidence of your reliability. When you catch hesitation, whisper your identity cue. I move fast. Then take one step forward immediately. These rituals transform identity from belief to behavior. Soon, your brain stops asking, can I? And starts assuming, of course I will. That's when discipline stops being something you do. It becomes something you are. Step 5. Let action define you, not intention. Many people live in the prison of potential. They say, I could do that. I plan to start soon. I'm just waiting for the right time. But identity isn't built by intention. It's built by evidence. You don't become an athlete by wanting to work out. You become one by showing up, even when you don't feel like it. You don't become a writer by having ideas. You become one by writing, even when no one's reading. Every small act of action changes your identity slightly. Each repetition carves the truth deeper. I am someone who does. That's how confidence grows, not from affirmation, but from proof. And the more proof you accumulate, the more unstoppable you become. The identity of action framework. Shift your language. Replace passive self-talk with active identity statements. I'm a finisher. I act fast. I start before I feel ready. Keep a wins log. Record daily proof of action. Small wins, follow-throughs, moments of momentum. Protect your identity. Say no to time thieves, distractions, and environments that contradict your chosen self. Reinforce through rituals. Start your day with a statement of action. End it with evidence of consistency. Let action define you. Your identity isn't what you claim. It's what you confirm through movement. The power of self-consistency. Humans have a deep psychological need to stay consistent with their self-image. Once you truly believe you're a finisher, your brain will subconsciously resist behaviors that contradict that belief. You won't have to force discipline anymore. It'll self-enforce. You'll start thinking, finisher me doesn't skip twice. Finisher me doesn't leave things incomplete. Finisher me follows through, even when tired. That's the invisible power of identity-based discipline. It eliminates debate. When your identity and your actions align, your effort becomes effortless. Language shift. I'm a finisher. I start before I feel ready. Keep a wins log. Daily proof entries train self-concept. Protect identity with boundaries. Say no to time thieves that contradict finisher you. Because discipline isn't a task you perform. It's a person you become. Once you build the identity of action, you don't chase momentum. You embody it. Chapter 19. Create public deadlines and real stakes. Motivation is fragile when it lives in private. You can negotiate with yourself endlessly, delay, excuse, justify, and rationalize because no one else knows the promises you've broken. That's why some goals linger for months, even years. They never leave your notebook because they never enter the world. But the moment you make your deadline public, everything changes. Pressure becomes real. Momentum becomes personal. Your reputation becomes your accountability system. Discipline strengthens fastest when it's exposed to consequence. Post a ship date, use a countdown, invite a friend to check in. Step 1. The power of public pressure. Private deadlines are flexible. You can bend them. Public deadlines are magnetic. They pull you forward because your word is on the line. When you announce your goal publicly, online, to a mentor, to a small group, even to one person, you give your intentions weight. You've moved from wish to witness commitment. Post your ship date. I'll publish the first draft by Friday. The new video goes live next Tuesday. My app update ships on the 30th. Add visual proof, a countdown timer, a calendar post, a story update. These aren't gimmicks, they're psychological levers. The brain takes public promises seriously. You've triggered your reputation mechanism, the instinctive drive to remain credible in the eyes of others. And when you combine accountability with visibility, procrastination loses its best hiding spot, anonymity. You no longer work in silence. You work under the subtle tension of being seen. That tension, properly managed, turns intention into execution. Step 2. Add human accountability. Deadlines matter more when someone else expects you to meet them. That's why teams outperform solo efforts. Collaboration creates social consequence. Invite a friend, mentor, or accountability partner to check in on your progress. Give them permission to ask, "Did you ship it?" The rule is simple. If it's private, it's optional. If it's shared, it's real. You can even structure your accountability in tiers. Tier 1, a close friend who checks in casually. Tier 2, a small mastermind or peer group that meets weekly. Tier 3, a public platform, social media, blog, or community where you post progress transparently. The higher the visibility, the stronger the drive to deliver. And remember, you're not doing it for approval. You're doing it for alignment. External eyes keep your internal promises honest. When someone's expecting an update, you stop negotiating with procrastination. You don't want to disappoint them or yourself. Step 3. Introduce real stakes. Make it hurt a little. Accountability works best when paired with stakes, because comfort is the enemy of urgency. When there's nothing to lose, delay feels safe. When there's something on the line, action feels necessary. That's why elite performers use commitment contracts, systems that attach a real consequence to an action. Examples: monetary stakes, put $100 on the line. If you miss the deadline, it goes to a cause you don't support. Social stakes, promise your audience or group an update. If you miss, you must post an honest explanation. Emotional stakes, tie the goal to something deeply meaningful. If I don't finish, I can't take that weekend trip. The principle is this: stakes should sting, not destroy. You don't need to create panic. You just need to make delay uncomfortable enough to move you. When the cost of not acting is slightly painful, your brain stops tolerating procrastination. You've shifted from optional effort to required behavior. Step 4. Track deadlines like events, not dreams. A real deadline lives in your calendar, not your imagination. Set your deadlines like appointments, fixed, named, and visible. Add a ship date in bold. Create a countdown widget on your phone or desktop. Set reminders for checkpoints, midway progress, draft complete, final polish. Treat your deadlines like you'd treat someone else's, with respect and urgency. Because every missed deadline silently rewires your brain to distrust your own word. And every met deadline reinforces that your word equals action. That's how identity and accountability fuse. Step 5. Combine pressure with progress. Pressure alone can crush you. Progress without pressure can lull you. But when you combine both, measured effort under visible tension, you become unstoppable. Here's the framework. Announce the date. Make it public, visible, real. Invite accountability. One person or community watching. Attach a stake, something small but emotionally real. Track the countdown. Time becomes tangible. Deliver, reflect, repeat. With every cycle, your confidence compounds. You prove that you don't just set goals, you ship results. The psychology behind stakes. Humans avoid pain faster than we chase pleasure. It's called loss aversion. We're twice as motivated to avoid losing something as we are to gain something new. When you use that principle consciously, you can turn it into a tool. A small, intentional fear of loss becomes fuel for consistency. You're no longer running on inspiration. You're running on structure, accountability, and consequence. The same formula used by entrepreneurs, athletes, and artists who deliver under pressure. The real magic: stakes build integrity. When you put your word in public and follow through, you're not just achieving goals, you're building integrity. Every public promise kept becomes a brick in the foundation of self-trust. And the stronger that foundation becomes, the less you need pressure at all. Because one day, you'll realize you no longer need someone watching. You're watching yourself, and that's enough. Post a ship date, use a countdown, invite a friend to check in. Put dollar on the line, commitment contracts, or attach a meaningful consequence. Stakes should sting a little, enough to move you, not paralyze you. Because pressure isn't punishment. It's proof that it matters. When your goals have witnesses and your promises have weight, you stop hoping you'll follow through and start guaranteeing it. Chapter 20. Lock in the lifestyle. Make IT non-negotiable. Discipline isn't something you use occasionally. It's something you become. At first, you build systems to fight procrastination. But if you stay consistent long enough, those systems stop feeling like effort. They become identity. The ultimate goal isn't to stay motivated. It's to make execution a lifestyle so integrated into who you are that not following through feels unnatural. That's the moment you stop asking, "How do I stay disciplined?" and start living as someone who simply does. Codify your personal execution playbook. Q. First 5 minutes, sprint length, tools, review cadence. Step 1. Codify your personal execution playbook. Every disciplined person runs on a system, even if they've never written it down. But the best ones don't rely on memory or emotion. They codify their routine like a formula. Your personal execution playbook is your personal blueprint, a detailed, no guesswork plan that describes exactly how you start, work, and recover. It's your anti-procrastination script, your operating manual for momentum. Here's how to write yours. Q. The ritual that starts your session: coffee, music, location, or trigger stack. See Chapter 14. Example. After coffee, I open my project dashboard and start the timer. First 5 minutes. The micro action that gets motion going. Example. List 3 tasks or draft the first paragraph. Sprint length. The time block where focus stays sharpest. Example. 40 minutes deep work plus 10-minute break. Tools and environment. Everything that removes friction. Example. Noise-canceling headphones, water nearby, single-tab browser. Review cadence. When you reflect, adjust, and reset. Example. End-of-day wins log, Chapter 18, Sunday, 10-minute system check. Once written, this becomes your protocol. No more guesswork, no emotional debate. You don't decide what to do, you follow the playbook. This is how you turn productivity from chaos into choreography. Step 2. Conduct quarterly audits. Even the best systems decay over time. Your energy changes, your environment evolves, your goals expand. That's why professionals treat discipline like software. They update it. Every quarter, do a performance audit on your process. Refine bottlenecks. What slows you down most? Start friction, distraction, fatigue. Adjust one lever at a time. Upgrade environments. Change what's around you. A better workspace, cleaner digital setup, fewer triggers. Small shifts, lighting, sound, ergonomics, often create massive focus gains. Rotate rewards. Refresh your reinforcement system, Chapter 16. Change how you celebrate streaks to keep dopamine fresh. These audits keep your system alive. They ensure your process evolves with you, not against you. Think of it like maintaining a high-performance engine. You're not fixing failure, you're tuning excellence. Step 3. Treat discipline as lifestyle design. When discipline stops being a strategy and starts being a structure, you've crossed the final threshold. You're not scheduling work anymore. You're designing a way of living. That means your mornings have predictable flow. Your focus hours are sacred. Your environment reinforces clarity. Your recovery fuels the next sprint. Your review keeps your progress visible. This isn't rigidity, it's rhythm. When you make execution part of your lifestyle, procrastination doesn't vanish by effort. It simply stops fitting your identity. You no longer have to try to act. You act because it's what you do. Step 4. Build rituals of reinforcement. A lifestyle stays locked not through intensity, but through repetition. That's why you need rituals of reinforcement. Small, consistent behaviors that anchor your identity daily. Morning ritual. Start with your cue, coffee, breath, affirmation, or setup. Start ritual. Same first 5 minutes every session. End ritual. Review your wins log or streak board, chapters 15 and 18. Weekly reset. Revisit your playbook, plan your sprints, renew clarity. Quarterly upgrade. Audit, refine, and celebrate. Each repetition etches the routine deeper into your nervous system. Soon, skipping feels strange, not working feels off-brand. That's when you know the system is permanent. Step 5. Live as the system. Discipline fails when it feels external, something you apply. It becomes unbreakable when it feels internal, something you are. Your system isn't a checklist anymore. It's your character. Your rituals aren't tasks. They're expressions of identity. This is what mastery looks like. You don't find time. You own structure. You don't hope for motivation. You trust momentum. You don't fight resistance. You flow through routine. When execution becomes who you are, every goal becomes inevitable. Because procrastination can't survive inside a system that's alive in you. The non-negotiable framework. Codify your personal execution playbook. Write down every step of your work ritual, from cue to cool down. Review and refine quarterly. Identify bottlenecks, update environments, refresh rewards. Anchor rituals daily. Use repetition to make effort automatic. Let identity replace motivation. You don't do disciplined things. You're a disciplined person. From habit to identity. At this stage, your anti-procrastination process isn't something separate from you. It's how you live. Every cue, every sprint, every reflection, it's the language of your lifestyle. You don't rely on motivation because you rely on design. You don't hope for consistency because you are consistency. You've locked it in, not through force, but through fluency. Codify your personal execution playbook. Cue, first 5 minutes, sprint length, tools, review cadence. Quarterly audit, refine bottlenecks, upgrade environments, rotate rewards. Your anti-procrastination process becomes part of who you are, not what you do. Because the goal was never just to beat procrastination. It was to become someone it can't recognize anymore. Once you lock in a lifestyle, discipline stops being your effort. It becomes your nature. Procrastination loses when movement becomes your default. You've learned how to define done, shrink tasks, time box effort, engineer your environment, and rebuild identity through action. Don't wait for perfect. Don't negotiate with excuses. Start small, start now, and keep starting until starting is automatic. In the next 24 hours, pick one task, apply chapters 2 to 5, and ship a version 0.1. Then repeat tomorrow and the next day. This is how your life changes, not by willpower bursts, but by a system that moves you daily. Act now. Iterate fast. Become unstoppable.